call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's great to be back. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. Today, we're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Paddington and all across the UK. On today's show, is Labour in turmoil because a bombshell new poll has predicted that the Labour Party could lose over 200 seats if the general election was called today, with major casualties including Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper and Wes Streeting. And with Reform surging to 150,000 members as Kemi Badenoch flounders, Westminster is also ripe with rumours of a Tory leadership plot. And British farmers are digging in against the Labour government with threats of tractors blocking distribution centres. They've warned that we could see no food and serious chaos within even the next fortnight. On today's show, I'll be joined by 3 farmers leading this rural revolution. They told GB News, we will never back down. And leaked Labour Party plans to make the school curriculum more diverse has been blasted by critics as socialist brainwashing that teaches white pupils to hate themselves. Some parents have even threatened to take their kids out of school and go on a woke strike. Is this woke washing of our children simply a step too far? And New Year's Eve is also upon us, and quelle surprise, the weather looks like it might be a total washout. Will the elements turn your fireworks display into a damp squib? We'll have a full weather update from the legend, that is John Ketley. That's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. It's great to be back on GB News. 5 days off with my family in Nottingham and the West Country. I went down the forest on Boxing Day. Here's a picture of me with John McGovern, the European double winner, European Cup winner. Had a fantastic day. Forest beat Spurs 1-0. Second in the league. It really does feel like the glory days all over again. Wonderful host. Thank you very much to Nottingham Forest Football Club for having me. And I want to say as well, a huge thank you to the many, many GB News viewers I met while in Nottingham. It's simply unbelievable to chat with you, to shake hands with you, to have pictures taken with you, and dare I say it, to have a pint or two with you in pubs across Nottingham. It was so lovely to talk to you. You feel like we're giving you a voice, and that's our job. With the People's Channel, we're here to represent you. And also in Stroud yesterday, I met some people there who are avid viewers. So thanks to everybody for supporting GB News. One heck of a year is coming up, and one heck of a show is coming up. Get in touch, usual ways, gbnews.com/you'll say. But now's your headlines. Tadeo Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. A fourth body has been recovered from the Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at Sangatte this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded boat. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagle said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died trying to cross the Channel. The King has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, who's died at the age of 100. His Majesty says, "It was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights." Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, whilst Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags above Westminster and Downing Street are flying at half-mast in respect. Mr Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia yesterday. South Korea's acting president has ordered an emergency safety inspection of the country's entire airline operations system as investigators work to identify victims and find out what caused the deadliest air disaster in the country. The King has paid tribute to the victims of the plane crash, which claimed the lives of 179 people. The Jeju Air passenger plane was carrying 181 people when it skidded off a runway at Muan International Airport in South Korea. The country's national fire agency said 85 women, 84 men and 10 others whose genders weren't immediately identifiable died in the fire at the airport around 180 miles south of Seoul. Emergency workers pulled 2 people, both crew members, to safety, and local health officials said they remain conscious. A British teenager sentenced to 1 year in prison in Dubai after a holiday romance with a 17-year-old girl has surrendered himself to authorities to begin his sentence, according to a campaign group. 18-year-old Marcus Fakana was with his family in the United Arab Emirates when he met the girl, who's also from London and is now 18. He was arrested and charged after the girl's mother found their chats and pictures and called the Dubai police. Campaign group detained in Dubai previously said Fakana planned to appeal the sentence, and he'd urged UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who's the family's MP in Tottenham, to intervene. However, when asked about the case, the Foreign Secretary said people should follow the rules of other countries. He also said Fakana had all the support available from UK officials. In other news, 5 people have reportedly been charged in connection with the death of One Direction singer Liam Payne at a hotel in Argentina. That's according to local media. The 31-year-old star died in October after falling from the 3rd-floor balcony of a hotel that he was staying in. Hotel manager Gilda Martin and hotel employee Esteban Grassi, as well as Roger Norres, who was reportedly a friend of Liam, had been charged with manslaughter. Argentina's National Criminal and Correctional Prosecutor's Office is quoted as saying. Brian Pais and Ezequiel Pereira, who both reportedly worked at the hotel, have been charged with supplying cocaine. A judge has reportedly ordered that 2 of the 5 accused should be remanded in custody. In other news, Gatwick Airport says operations are now returning to normal after 4 days of fog-related flight restrictions. More than 20 flights planned for today were cancelled in advance, and passengers were being warned of delays throughout the day. A Gatwick spokesperson said temporary air traffic restrictions are in place and we apologise for any inconvenience. They have since said that passengers should still check the status of their flight with their airline, as there may be a knock-on effect. And weather warnings are in place for snow, wind and rain across much of the UK on New Year's Day. Yellow warnings are in place for Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Scotland from tomorrow before extending across most of the UK on Wednesday. A series of warnings are in force and will last in some areas until 6 a.m. on the 2nd of January. The Met Office says there's likely to be travel disruption, with almost all of the country impacted by at least one yellow alert over the 4 days. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Now it's back to Martin.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now we've got some breaking news for you reaching us in the last few moments, and it's this. 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major people smuggling ring have been arrested while on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans and then into Western Europe. And authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. And the gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have begun. Well, let's have a chat about this now with our political editor, Chris Hope, who joins me live from Westminster. Chris, welcome to the show. Great to see you after a Christmas break. So a serious story and a big win for the Labour Party here. They said they'd smashed the gangs, and there's some evidence of some throughput here.
Yeah, Martin, I'm happy New Year to you, and great to see you on the tour of pubs in your hometown of Nottingham there. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I think this is a big moment. It shows further how this promise by this government to go upstream and tackle the gangs at source and support enforcement agencies on the continent is coming to bear here. You've got 3 men in Belgium. They were wanted in the UK after being arrested in Belgium, and they're on the run. They've been arrested here and they'll be returned by an operation with the Met Police and National Crime Agency. Prosecutors in Belgium tell us they're part of a major gang transporting migrants from Afghanistan through Turkey, Iran, Balkans, into France and Belgium. Of course, it's very possible the end destination was the UK. We wait to see how that played out in court. But this people trafficking ring and the attack, the attempt to stop it by the authorities here is exactly what we're hearing so much more from this government. What we are not seeing from this government is any indication it's working. So we look at numbers here as we approach the end of the year. Figures up a quarter on the same time in 2023 to 37,000 crossing this year. But of course, under Labour, that's also up by about 27% on the same period last year, but down only a third on 2022. So what's missing maybe from this is an attempt at dissuading them from coming in the first place. The Rwanda plan was one attempt at doing that. Anecdotally, it seemed to be working, with reporters going to northern France saying that people were not going to cross to the UK because of a fear of being deported to Rwanda, or even crossing from Northern Ireland into Southern Ireland. But as things stand, we've lost that. The focus now is on putting re-resourcing that and getting them through the system, dealing with the backlogs in the UK while trying to work upstream with these enforcement bodies. We'll see if it works. Again, I asked in today's meeting with the PM's official spokesman, will you set a target? Will it fall in 2025? No, we won't. We won't play a numbers game, we're told, but it is a priority for this government.
And I wonder, Chris, if this seeming failure to deal with stopping the boats is feeding into an astonishing poll that came out yesterday from More in Common, predicting if an election were to happen today, which of course it won't, it's going to be 4.5 years, but nevertheless, as a bellwether poll, an astonishing hemorrhaging of votes for the Labour Party, losing 200 seats and some really big names in those who could lose, including cabinet ministers. Tell us more.
That's right. Wes Streeting and others may well lose their seats. Wes Streeting, although interestingly, to an independent candidate rather than the Reform. But no question, we've seen before how Reform UK could take seats from people like Angela Rayner in the past, and they're forecast to win dozens of seats, maybe as many as 80. Not the breakthrough which Farage wants. Nigel Farage, the leader, he wants to make that in 2028, 2029. That may happen in the following time. But there's no question that Reform are on the up. It seems to me, though, that the governing parties are failing. We're seeing that in the polling so far in the 6 short months since the last election with Labour, certainly over the 14 years of the Tory party, when they, of course, jacked up taxes to the highest level since the Second World War and also failed to deal with either illegal or legal migration. We're seeing that pattern being carried on by Labour. The beneficiary is a populist party like Reform UK. I think they're helped also by the interventions while we were away last week, Martin, from Kemi Badenoch attacking the numbers of people who Reform say they've got. Now, they do claim it's now more than 153,000. I haven't been able to verify those figures myself, but we are told by other reports that those are correct, those numbers. They have now got 153,000 members. Critics are saying they could be from overseas. Reform UK won't comment on that. But those numbers, and they say, in fact, that when you do try and become a member of Reform, you have to put given a postcode, and so they know where you are in the UK, and that's why they are certain of those figures. So the beneficiary, it seems, is Reform UK. And after last week, when Kemi Badenoch said, well, these figures are nonsense, and Nigel Farage has demanded an apology, Farage himself told me today that the attempt to shut it down by the Tory leader last week, maybe it's worth £1 million in advertising. So I think it is showing, frankly, that Reform UK, while being the 8th biggest party by MPs in Parliament, is cutting through, and that's a worry for both Labour and the Tory party.
And Chris, before you go, as well as Angela Rayner losing her seat in this prediction, it's only a poll, of course, to Reform, Ed Miliband losing to Reform, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy also, and that brings us to the next rumblings. Already there could be a potential leadership plot with a previous unsuccessful leadership candidate hoving back into view. Tell us more about the unlikely return of Robert Jenrick.
You're referring to Robert Jenrick. Now, yes, well, there are WhatsApp groups around all these senior politicians, and there is a WhatsApp group around, or many of them around Robert Jenrick. One of them has sprung back into life today, and I've been sent various screen grabs from this by contacts. Now, you've heard the same, Martin. I mean, I've talked to people around Robert Jenrick, and they say they can't control these groups. There's all sorts of WhatsApp groups being set up in politics. There's no way of marshalling them. But this one here is called, I think it's called Conservatives for Jenrick. They're looking at restarting this space, it says here, to collaborate and drive meaningful change within the party. Now, that's quite a nuance. That could mean meaningful change to create a challenge to Kemi Badenoch. That is not being talked about at all by people around Robert Jenrick, and indeed it's quite hard now to remove Robert Jenrick. You need a third, Kemi Badenoch, you need a third of MPs to agree to that, and that be under changes brought in by the 22 committee when Kemi Badenoch became leader. So that is looking like a challenge, but it just shows, I think, that the idea so far from Kemi Badenoch to talk about principles, have reviews, but not actual policies, is leaving a vacuum on the right of politics into which Reform is coming with its suggestions.
Do you think, Chris, there might be a bit of buyer's regret from Conservative voters for choosing Kemi Badenoch? I mean, the kind of policies that are now getting traction with Reform are very Robert Jenrick. You know, Nigel Farage himself calls Robert Jenrick my tribute act without the personality or jokes. He would say that. But do you think there is this sense now? I mean, I was hearing that a lot when I was in Nottingham. A lot of people who are jumping ship to Reform from the Conservatives say they'd have stuck with the party if Jenrick had become the leader.
I think the frustration, if there is one, about Kemi Badenoch is that she's taking her time to say what she stands for. With Jenrick, you knew exactly what you're going to do, commit to leaving the ECHR on day one, and that's his approach to the small boats. Once you remove the human rights protections for those arriving here legally, they can be taken straight away out of the UK. Instead, they're put in hotels and allowed to go through a process. And that he was trying to deal with that problem at source. In fact, he resigned over that very issue when he felt the Rwanda bill didn't do what it was say on the tin. But with Kemi Badenoch, we are being told, I think she said in an interview before Christmas with the BBC, that you wouldn't choose a restaurant based on a menu today. You choose it in 3 or 4 years' time when the election takes place. The problem with asking voters to wait is they may well not wait. And into that vacuum, you've got Farage and the like. I mean, Farage worked last week in Christmas week when everyone else was off work, because he was saying, or he thinks privately, that around the Christmas table, people would be discussing Reform UK, Nigel Farage, and he wanted to be an answer to that. That's why he made himself available to GB News and other broadcasters, made a big fuss about the membership, because he knew that there was quite a quiet week, and around all sorts of Christmas tables, the conversation was about reform and Farage and politics, and there was the answer. And I think that ability to see where the market's going, to see where the conversation's going, is why he's so feared by both Labour and the Conservatives.
I think it's fair to say that the Reform press offensive at least has been a cracker, and it's been cold turkey for the Tories and the Labour Party. Chris Hope, always a pleasure, never a chore. See you again in the next hour. And I'm joined in the studio now by political commentator Matthew Stadler. Matthew, thanks for sitting patiently throughout that. Let's talk about this poll. It's just a poll, but nevertheless, it is very, very grim reading for the Labour Party, something approaching what you call a bloodbath in polling terms, losing 200 seats, including cabinet ministers. The honeymoon period is well and truly over.
Not sure there was a honeymoon period at all. It doesn't surprise me, this poll. And if minds were not focused already, Starmer's and his cabinet's minds were not already focused, they sure as hell will be now, because nothing focuses the mind like the prospect of losing your seat. So we heard names, didn't we, tripping off the tongue for those on the right: Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper, and so forth. Although actually Yvette Cooper's a pretty tough Home Secretary, I think. So look, bad news for Labour, no doubt about it. People on the left, people on the right, I think most agree that there have been some own goals. But also, if you're being fair, it was an enormously difficult inheritance. Yes, we heard about Rishi Sunak generating some growth. The Prime Minister, who was in power for less than 2 years, also led us into a recession, remember. The economy was by no means going gangbusters. And at the same time, public services had been hugely underinvested in. So I suppose my question to have-a-go economists on the right who have been criticising Labour's approach and Labour's budget, and there's certainly a lot to discuss about it, is who would you have taxed? Because if you didn't raise taxes, then in the short term, you'd have been leaving people to die or wither away on these NHS.
You could cut taxes to stimulate growth.
You could, and that's a plausible economic argument. I'm not sure that those who are proponents of it have been proved to be right over the years. What it wouldn't have done is put money in the short term. And people, many viewers no doubt, have friends or they themselves were languishing, and still are to some extent, on these NHS.
But they found 10 billion quid for public sector pay rises. If you
don't have trains that work, then, OK, you could still have an economy. Of course you do. We had an economy when they weren't working before. But you want to get growth, you have to lay the foundations, and part of that is having a rail network that actually functions.
22 billion quid for carbon capture.
I think one of the
16 billion quid for climate change abroad. These are all savings that could be slashed.
We can debate all of those policies. But I think one of the fascinating things about this poll is, yes, of course, it's bad news for Labour, but they remain the largest party. What's really interesting is that the Conservatives and Reform, even if you add them up together and you have this bloodbath, they're still a minority in Parliament. So the right and the hard right, you add them up together, Reform and the Tories...
Who's the hard right?
Reform are the hard right. And,
in what way are they hard right?
They're further right than the Tories, aren't they? We've got to find a name for them, but we don't need to quibble about that for a second. I'm trying to analyse it, and my analysis shows that there is still a progressive majority on the basis of this big poll. Yes, bad news for Labour, but in terms of where the country is, they are not at the moment on the right. I would be very surprised if Kemi Badenoch is still the leader of the Tory party come the next election.
Do you think Jenrick's manoeuvres...
I, as someone who has... I mean, his politics and his approach sends a chill down my spine. I sighed a sigh of relief when he didn't win that election, both because I think his politics are vile, but also because I think he's an effective communicator. Now, this idea of him being a Nigel Farage-light figure is interesting. The people on the right have a real problem, which is if they don't somehow unite, if the Tories and Reform do not unite ahead of the next election, then almost however badly Labour end up doing, and let's all hope that they get better and better for all of our sakes, then you're not going to get a right-wing party replacing Labour in power, are you?
Do you think they're going to get better? I mean, you might say you believe in Santa. Look at the writing on the wall, particularly with farming. The farming revolution, the revolt, shows no signs of going. In fact, I'm hearing as soon as January the 10th, we might see blockades and food shortages. Now, that forced Tony Blair to do a U-turn in 2000 when Blair had popularity Starmer could only dream of.
You're dreaming of this of the farmers forcing a U-turn. Let me just put this in a little bit of perspective. Yes, I have some sympathy for some farmers on an individual basis, but you were suggesting, I saw in your coming up bit, that we live out of our pantries, that the British people live out of our pantries.
I'm saying some people
in order to support the farmers. Let's get this perspective. Over a third of children in this country are living in poverty. Now, that might be relative poverty, but it's still poverty. And we are worrying about farmers who are having to pay some inheritance tax, like all the other people who have to pay inheritance tax, but less. Let's focus on making sure that children are not living in poverty. I don't think the British people want to live out of their pantries.
If there's no farmers, the kids won't have food at all. Yeah, this is the point. No farmers, no food. So you're going to give in to their threats? That's not very Martin Daubney, giving in to the threats. That's not how I see you, Martin. I see you as much tougher and more robust. What I see is fairness. And this was a sudden change, wasn't in the manifesto, and it will impact small farmers whose assets alone take them over the £1 million mark. This is not going to hit the big landowners, the conglomerates won't care.
This is not a hill to die on, in my view. Was it fair to impose this tax when I thought that a Labour shadow minister last year said that there wouldn't be any changes in agricultural property relief? I don't think it was the right thing to do, and it was a political, I'm not talking about policy now, a political own goal, because you're making angry a united bunch of people who can be very focused in the way that they campaign. Look at the winter fuel allowance. That was another own goal.
Wallabies.
Okay. But if Labour and Starmer, and they have not got off to a good start, but if they can start to turn it around, they have got time, if they can start to turn it around, and it's a big if, they can get the economy buzzing, then it could look very, very different in a year or two's time. If they don't, then we've got a fascinating few years ahead politically and a difficult few years ahead for all of us, because what we want is a bit more cash in our pockets. Don't forget, we talk endlessly about immigration, legal and illegal. I think the thing that people most care about is the cost of living, and it is still ragingly high.
But those two things are intrinsically linked. Matthew Stadler, we have to leave it there. In fact, we'll speak to a farmer soon who says that the government has picked a fight with the wrong sector. Matthew Stadler, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you. Time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win 50 grand in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash that we've ever given away here at GB News, and it could be yours. And here's the details you need to win that whopping, juicy 50 grand tax-free cash.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, British farmers are set to start the new year by hitting back at the Labour government by disrupting the UK's food supplies. They're telling me they'll never back down. I'll be joined by one of the organisers next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The latest GB News travel. We've got the usual slow congestion in Berkshire on the M25 clockwise approaching the M4 interchange at junction 15. The M25 anti-clockwise in Kent, the usual slow traffic heading towards the Dartford tunnels. Heading on the M25 through the roadworks on the Wisley interchange just prior to junction 10, that continues to look slow. Onto the south coast, the M275 in Portsmouth, delays continue there heading towards the Rudnor roundabout for the A3. Over to the West Midlands, northbound the M5, delays continue there just prior to junction 8, where it meets for the M6. Travel time is around 25 minutes heading through that stretch. Problems in Cornwall, in Bodmin, the A38 both directions remains closed down to a multi-vehicle accident. That's between the Cardinham turnoff heading towards the Bodmin Parkway turning. For now, that's your very latest update.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right. Along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society, it actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. 3:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, farming fury is set to plough into the new year as a plot to block supermarkets is threatened over the government's inheritance tax raid on farmers. And the coordinated action will reportedly block distribution centres across the country and could take place as soon as mid-January. According to the Telegraph, the action would increase incrementally, but could result in a complete shutdown until the government negotiates. Well, I'm now joined by the farmer, Martin Williams, great friend of the show. Martin, welcome to the show, and I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. As we move towards the new year, could there be a nightmare for the Labour Party? You said to me repeatedly when you visited me in Westminster that they picked the wrong foe with farmers. You told me repeatedly you wouldn't back down. Now it seems you're gearing up for some more action. Tell us more.
Hi, Martin. Happy New Year to you. Yeah, we sat in Whitehall in November, 8 weeks ago, and we said that we would be polite up until Christmas. We've offered multiple chances of the government to come and have talks with us. We've been willing to speak. We've wanted to speak. Unfortunately, those have fallen pretty much on deaf ears. And unfortunately, when you make a deal, you should stick to it. And so, you know, after Christmas, who knows what might happen on the streets and in the cities. It's just such an annoying position to be put in when they've had so long to come and talk to us. I mean, there are many, many groups outside in the wider community outside the M25 who are very, very angry about this. I know we've had a couple of weeks off. We've been talking about schools. We've been talking about all the other fights that the government have seemed willing to pick. But quite honestly, after spending 14 years drinking in the pub of opposition to come out fighting with everyone quite like this. It's about time they sobered up. And maybe the farmers are the ones to sober them up.
Well, Martin Williams, sobering words indeed, but the talk of blockading food distribution centres of the major supermarkets, that's what's in the press today. Marks and Spencer's, Asda, Tesco, perhaps Tractors forming blockades outside them to stop food getting out. A similar tactic was tried in 1990, and that forced Tony Blair into a very, very sharp U-turn on the farmers. Is that what you're hoping to do this time around? Do you believe that the public are on your side?
I think the public are on our side, and I would hope they're on our side anyway. And I don't think any farmer has any wish to pour detriment on any member of the public. I think we're very aware of the public support and very grateful of it. However, the level of support that we're getting from government seems pretty minimal. And unfortunately, we've knocked on the door. We've visited their house a couple of times in the last couple of months. And even then, they're not coming to the door as if we're some sort of person not to be opened the door to. It's not a very pleasant place to be. So we are asking for dialogue. And until that spring budget review in March, I believe it's due, there will be opportunity to put more and more pressure on. And the groups that I've just come off a Zoom call now with a group, and, you know, they're very, very angry, and quite understandably so. I'm very fortunate with a couple of others that we've been in London a lot, and we have sort of been closer to the fire then than many others have. Those people left in the countryside are feeling pretty dejected. They're feeling forgotten about. They're feeling worthless. And there are people still sitting in the countryside 8 weeks after a budget with a price on their heads. And that, for me, is totally unacceptable.
And Martin,
no government.
Martin, I'll quickly interject because we have a quick moment before the news, but you told me about something which sounds fantastic. That is a Beacons of Hope protest across the country tomorrow night. Farmers starting bonfires to herald their unification in this process. Tell me a bit more about that. How many people? There's a map on screen there we have of where you've been having farmers confirmed. How many people, in your estimation, Martin Williams, have signed up for this initiative? How many bonfires can we expect across the UK tomorrow, do you estimate?
Well, the website went live last night at about 7 o'clock, and there's now well over 1,000 people lighting beacons on New Year's Eve. So by tomorrow night, who knows what the number will be. As that news spreads, we hope to cover the country with as many beacons as possible. You know, just to show some solidarity and to give people some feeling of hope. It's such a disappointing feeling when you just cannot get a dialogue with your adversary, so to speak.
OK, well, let's make sure we try and get some of those beacons on GB News tomorrow. Martin Williams, thanks as ever for continuing the fight and coming on the show. Always a pleasure to have your company, and a very, very happy New Year to you, Martin Williams. Thank you very much. There's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including leaked Labour plans are set to make the school curriculum even more diverse, and they've been blasted by critics, of course, as socialist brainwashing. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories: 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major people smuggling ring have been arrested whilst on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans into Western Europe. Authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. The gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have also begun. Elsewhere, a 4th body's been recovered from the Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at Sangatte this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded boat. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagle said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died trying to cross the Channel. And the King has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, who died at the age of 100. His Majesty says, "It was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights." Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, whilst Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags have been flying above Westminster and Downing Street at half-mast to pay respects. Mr. Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia yesterday. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the New Year's period, it's often going to be unsettled with some outbreaks of rain and also some strong winds with multiple Met Office warnings in force. Back to this evening though, and we've got various frontal systems moving their way into the north, moving into cold air, so likely to bring not only outbreaks of rain but also some snow at times, particularly across Scotland where we do have some warnings issued, including an amber warning later on into the night for heavy and prolonged outbreaks of rain across Scotland, which may cause some disruption through the early hours of New Year's Eve. And this rain will later on move into western parts of Northern Ireland too, but elsewhere largely dry, plenty of cloud around, which keeps temperatures up overnight too. As we head through the early hours of New Year's Eve, as I say, very unsettled across Scotland, multiple warnings in force here. Outbreaks of rain, also some snow across northern parts of England, parts of Shetland too, expected to see multiple snow showers move through. And across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, outbreaks of rain, this heavy and persistent at times, so very unsettled start to New Year's Eve here. But elsewhere, largely dry, plenty of cloud around, may also see some drizzle around hilly areas too. For New Year's Eve itself, it is likely to stay unsettled. Still various outbreaks of rain moving their way slowly southeastwards into northern parts of England and then later into northern parts of Wales too. It does generally clear across Scotland, but still plenty of showers here. These also falling as snow at times too, and some quite blustery winds under those cloudier skies also. But across the far south and southeast, once again largely dry, though still plenty of cloud around here too. Now for the evening, we'll eventually see these outbreaks of rain once again slowly sink their way towards the southeast, and further north still very blustery here and still plenty of showers moving through too. Now likely to see more sunshine for the end of the week, but with a cold northerly flow, that means temperatures are likely to dip.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:40 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, with 2025 just around the corner, today at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very, very special message. Take a look here.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support. It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
And just to echo that, thank you, especially to all the wonderful people I met in Nottingham and Stroud over the Christmas period. Thank you for coming over and saying hello, and thank you for your continued support. It really, really does mean the world. Thank you. Now, moving on, the national curriculum is set to be made even more diverse under brand new plans to refresh what is currently taught in British schools. The government have pledged to breathe new life into what they are calling the UK's outdated system. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson's overhaul aims to create a curriculum that will help produce young people who appreciate the diversity of Britain. Here we go. Well, let's see what the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern, makes of all this nonsense. Chris, welcome to the show. Very happy to have your company. How can the curriculum get more diverse? My kids go to school, all they ever talk about is Black History Month, Rosa Parker. Diversity is everywhere in the curriculum. Why are they meddling with it in this way?
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in writing 3 versions of the national curriculum, and ended up being in disagreement. I think you're right. The national curriculum, from its early days, I remember talking to Margaret Thatcher about it, has been captured. I remember her saying to me, Chris, you know, we've got the first national curriculum coming out in the next few days, and it didn't include the First World War and stuff. So she had me around it down the street, so I was trying to sort things out. But I've been involved. Basically, the national curriculum is written by people who have responsibility for running down our education system. That what's being suggested today is that we're going to have an even more left-wing woke curriculum. Now, if you are a Marxist, this is good news. Now, they will be celebrating about this. But already we have a curriculum which is captured. It's very left-wing liberal. And I'm afraid the future doesn't look good. The only bright side in all of this, Martin, I would say, is that I've taught for 35 years. I have kids myself. Kids are generally rebellious. I can see them seeing through this. They recognise fake education. They're going to have a curriculum which will be a vehicle for brainwashing them. And I think in time, we might see young people actually rebelling against this, as is happening in some other countries. So it's bad. It's going to get worse, certainly. But there may be some hope in young people.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, my kids are now 15 and 10, and I think they're starting to ask questions about this monoculture around climate change, around systemic racism, around the trans stuff. There is a fight back. However, if the educational curriculum is being rewritten in this way, Chris, does it verge away from education and towards indoctrination? And if this becomes the new normal, are we just producing a sort of finishing school for woke socialists?
That will be the intention, of course, and I think MPs should take more interest in education. Too often in the House of Commons, when education comes up for discussion, most MPs leave the chamber. This is really quite an existential debate for the future of our country. There's a very real attempt to take over so that there is no room for freedom of expression. Children, young people are told there's only one way to think, and if you don't think in this way, then there's something wrong with you. I remember writing the history curriculum quite recently with Michael Gove, and I told him, you know, if we're going to include some of this woke history, let's at least do that in a genuine way. So let's, for example, if we're going to teach Black History Month, which is, you know, people argue for, I don't argue for myself, but anyway, if we're going to do Black History Month, let's teach the kids that Black people and white people and any other colour you like are very much the same. So in Britain, once upon a time, there was a Roman emperor called Septimius Severus who was from Africa. He came to Britain and he died in York. Now, he ordered the mass extermination, the genocide of all the people north of Hadrian's Wall. Teach them that, and teach them that they had slavery when they're under this emperor. Teach them also about the #1 Black Britain voted by Black people and other people, Mary Seacole. Mary Seacole had views about race which make Churchill look very mild and sort of left-wing. I mean, she uses, in her autobiography, she uses the N-word quite frequently. She put her life on the line for the British Empire. She went to the Crimea, to the front line, to support the British Empire. She was a great fan of Nelson. So let's get beneath the surface. Don't just teach Mary Seacole as a black heroine or Septimius Severus as a Roman emperor, teach what they were really like. And what you find, Martin, is that black people and white people and all people across the world have good and they have bad in them. But don't distort the curriculum in the particular left-wing direction.
Chris McGovern, I can hear the sound of people choking on their granola and their muesli across the nation. Thank you very, very much. That's the chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern. Always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much. Now, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, and who can blame you, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching at 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The latest GB News Travel.
I'm Liam Jones. The M4 in London, if you're travelling westbound, is currently queuing down to an earlier two-vehicle accident between Junction 2 heading towards Hayes at Junction 3. Into Bedfordshire, if you're travelling through the roadworks along the M1, delays continue just before Junction 11 at Luton. Staffordshire northbound, the M6, long delays and 2 lanes closed due to an accident heading between Stoke-on-Trent at Junction 16 towards Crewe at Junction 17. Into the West Midlands, if you're travelling northbound, the M6 is queuing down to an earlier accident at Junction 10. That's at Walsall at Wolverhampton. The congestion is currently tailing back as far as the M5 interchange, and that's if you're heading back as far as Junction 8. For now, that's your very latest update.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just a reminder that you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025, the magnificent company of Bev, Patrick, Ben, Darren and Emily, who will be all together for a very, very special show, GB News New Year's Eve, live from 10 p.m. tomorrow night. Don't miss it. I might even pop up myself. Now, moving on, Northern Ireland's new police force considered recruiting women on a 50-50 basis with men to address their severe underrepresentation. Declassified files have revealed today. Stormont officials also sought legal advice on whether the new force's policy of recruiting 50% of all officers from the Catholic community could be challenged as discriminatory towards ethnic minorities. And for more on this now, we're joined by GB News' Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie, who is live in Belfast. Dougie, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. So it seems that wokery isn't a recent phenomenon. It's been going on since 2002. Tell us more.
Well, it has, Martin, and this really goes back to the 1998 peace agreement, of which in these last couple of weeks here, different governments have been releasing papers under the 25-year rule. The Irish government released them last week, and it turns out that Tony Blair was offering to amend Gerry Adams' speech. Of course, Gerry Adams was the head of Sinn Féin, the political wing of the IRA, who were caught in 2022 with secretive documents, very sensitive documents with names and addresses of serving police officers and prison officers. And to get them back into government, Tony Blair was offering his assistants to write their speeches for them. This week we find out that the Police Service of Northern Ireland, when they came into being in 2022, the Royal Ulster Constabulary went out on November the 4th, and
I think we've lost Dougie Beattie today. It was just getting going. It's an incredible story. Now, 25 years ago, these declassified documents have told us they were considering 50-50 recruitment with women, which, you know, nobody wanted. They don't now. They didn't then. But 25 years ago, this is the Blair government in its early days. They opened the borders to the European Union. They also wanted this absurd wokery with equal representation. What's wrong with just giving the best person the job? What about if we don't get people applying for these jobs? What about if 50% of women don't apply for the jobs? What do we do then? Change the entry criteria? Well, that's precisely what ends up happening. You lower the criteria. Look at this in terms of fire services. Look into it. The West Midlands Fire Service a few years ago made it 10 percentile points easier for women to get in, or ethnic minorities. Hello, my house is on fire. Send a trans person. Said nobody ever. How about just getting the best person into the job and do away with this woke nonsense? But here we go. 25 years ago, they were already at it in Northern Ireland. Sad to have lost Dougie Beattie there, but perhaps we'll get him again in the next hour. Now, loads of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts on the big stories of the day by going to gbnews.com/your say. Half says this. It's on the rumours of there being a leadership challenge potentially already to Kemi Badenoch. Half says this. I hope it is true that Robert Jenrick's supporters may be regrouping. I've voted Tory all of my life until the last election. I could never vote for Kemi, but I would probably return to the Tories if Jenrick was leader. I spoke to a lot of people in Nottingham at Christmas who said exactly the same thing. They're waiting to see who the leader was, and when it was Kemi Badenoch, they hopped it to Reform. Grumpy Grandad, I know a couple of them, says this: Labour are not listening to anyone. It's totally disrespectful to the people that they're supposed to serve. How much longer are we expected to put up with this? That is, of course, on the threats of farmer strikes and also the woke curriculum in schools. And Moira says this: GB News is going from strength to strength. Martin, thank you very much. And thanks for everybody who's been in touch and supporting us here on GB News. It really does mean the world. Now stick with us because we have all the latest on the threats of a farmer's blockade in the new year. That's with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel. Now here's your weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We're expecting heavy outbreaks of rain at times across Scotland, also some snow at times too. Windy across the north and elsewhere, a rather cloudy day on offer. And we do have an area of low pressure slowly sweeping its way eastwards across the north, bringing us that rain and the risk of snow. But elsewhere, high pressure clings on, giving us largely settled conditions for much of the country. Plenty of cloud around there and some rain and drizzle, particularly across hills, and longer, more persistent outbreaks of rain across parts of Northern Ireland. Ireland, parts of southern Scotland, and then later on into northern parts of England. This could be heavy at times and falling as snow at times across Scotland too, particularly the far north. We're expecting some showers moving through, these often falling as snow mainly across hills, but we could also see some to lower levels too. So as we finish off the day then, those snow showers are set to continue across the far north of Scotland. A little bit blustery here at times too. And then longer spells of rain just across the southern Scottish borders through into northern parts of England, northern parts of Northern Ireland too. This once again could be quite heavy and persistent at times. And elsewhere should be largely dry. Plenty of cloud around there. We can't rule out some drizzly spots, particularly around hills. And then overnight we'll see more of the same, still plenty of cloud around across the south, and these outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way northeastwards, falling as snow once again mainly to higher levels across Scotland, but we could also see some snow to lower levels too. And this rain turning rather heavy and persistent at times across Scotland and northern parts of England by the time we reach the early hours of the morning. And with plenty of cloud around, that keeps temperatures mild, but still a chilly feel across Scotland. And then an unsettled day to end the year, outbreaks of rain across Scotland, northern parts of England, Northern Ireland too, turning quite windy at times under this cloud and rain and still falling as snow for a time across Scotland. The driest and brightest of the weather across the far south and southeast, and temperatures overall up by a degree or two compared to today.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won $25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's great to be back with you here at GB News. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, Paddington even, and all across the UK. Autopilot there. Is the Labour Party in turmoil? Well, a bombshell new poll has predicted that the Labour could lose over 200 seats, with big-name casualties, including Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper and Wes Streeting, and with Reform surging to 150,000 members as Kemi Badenoch seems to be floundering. Westminster is ripe with rumours of a Robert Jenrick leadership plot. And British farmers are digging in against the Labour government with threats of tractors blocking food distribution centres. They've warned that we could see no food and even serious chaos within the next fortnight. On today's show, I'll be joined by farmers leading this rural revolution who've told me we will never back down. And New Year's Eve is almost upon us. And Kel Surprise, the weather looks like it'll be a total washout. Will the elements turn your fireworks display into a damp squib? We'll have a full weather update from my favourite legend of weather. That's John Ketley. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. I want to have a quick shout out to Nottingham Forest. I went down City Ground on Boxing Day. Forest second in the league. That man there, John McGovern, lifted those 2 European Cups for Forest back in the days, the Clough days, 78 and 79. And there's a feeling in the city of exuberance. And let me tell you this, GB News viewers, I met so many of you over Christmas, came over, shook my hand, said hello, got a few selfies, had a couple of drinks. I won't be embarrassed to admit. It's so wonderful to meet you. We're the People's Channel. We'd be nothing without you. I want to ask you a question. If there were food shortages, if it meant digging in, perhaps living off food from your freezer, from your larder for a week or even 2, is that something that you would support? Are you on the farmer's side? Or if there were food shortages because of their blockades, would your support for them start to dwindle away? Please get in touch, use your way, gbnews.com/your say. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. Well, we start this bulletin with some breaking news that Edinburgh's Hogmanay has been cancelled due to high winds and extreme weather, organisers announced hours ahead of celebrations kicking off today. Outdoor events scheduled for today and tomorrow have been called off for safety reasons, according to a spokesperson. Well, Blackpool's New Year's Eve fireworks have also been cancelled due to the forecast of high winds in northwest England tomorrow night. Well, weather warnings are in place for snow, wind and rain across much of the UK on New Year's Day. Yellow warnings are in place for Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Scotland from tomorrow before extending across most of the UK on Wednesday. A series of warnings are in force and will last in some areas until 6 a.m. on the 2nd of January. The Met Office says there's likely to be travel disruption as well, with almost all of the country impacted by at least one yellow alert over the 4 days. 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major people smuggling ring have been arrested whilst on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans into Western Europe. Authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. The gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have begun. Elsewhere, a 4th body has been recovered from the Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at Sangatte this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded boat. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagles said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died trying to cross the Channel. The King has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, who's died at the age of 100. His Majesty says it was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights. Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, whilst Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags above Westminster and Downing Street are flying at half-mast in respect. Mr. Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia. South Korea's acting president has ordered an emergency safety inspection of the country's entire airline operation system as investigators work to identify victims and find out what caused the deadliest air disaster in the country. The king has paid tribute to the victims of that crash, which claimed the lives of 179 people. The Jeju air passenger plane was carrying 181 people when it skidded off a runway at Muan International Airport in South Korea. The country's national fire agency said 85 women, 84 men and 10 others whose genders weren't immediately identifiable died in the fire at the airport around 180 miles south of Seoul. Emergency workers pulled 2 people, both crew members, to safety, and local health officials said they remain conscious. A British teenager sentenced to a year in prison in Dubai after a holiday romance with a 17-year-old girl has surrendered himself to authorities to begin his sentence, according to a campaign group. 18-year-old Marcus Fakana was with his family in the United Arab Emirates when he met the girl, who's also from London and is now 18. He was arrested and charged after the girl's mother found their chats and pictures and called the Dubai police. Campaign group detained in Dubai previously said Fakana planned to appeal the sentence, and he'd urged the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who's the family's MP in Tottenham, to intervene. However, when asked about the case, the Foreign Secretary said people should follow the rules of other countries. And 5 people have reportedly been charged in connection with the death of One Direction singer Liam Payne at a hotel in Argentina. The 31-year-old star died in October after falling from the 3rd-floor balcony of a hotel that he was staying in. Hotel manager Gilda Martin and hotel employee Esteban Grassi, as well as Roger Norres, who was reportedly a friend of Liam Payne, have been charged with manslaughter, Argentina's National Criminal and Correctional Prosecutor's Office is quoted as saying. Brian Pais and Ezekiel Pereira, who were both reportedly working at the hotel, have been charged with supplying cocaine. A judge has reportedly ordered that 2 of the 5 accused should be remanded in custody. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Excellent as ever. Now, it's beginning to look a lot like a dismal new year for the Labour government because a shocking new poll as Sir Keir Starmer's government is losing 200 seats at the next general election. And some big cabinet names are at serious risk of losing their seats, according to this poll. But it's promising news, meanwhile, for Reform UK. After overtaking the Conservatives in terms of membership, the more in common new poll has them winning 72 seats at the next general election. Of course, that's putting on 67. And here's what the political commentator Matthew Stadler made of the poll earlier.
So, look, bad news for Labour, no doubt about it. People on the left, people on the right, I think most agree that there have been some own goals. But also, if you're being fair, it was an enormously difficult inheritance. Yes, we heard about Rishi Sunak generating some growth. The Prime Minister, who was in power for less than 2 years, also led us into a recession, remember. The economy was by no means going gangbusters. And at the same time, public services had been hugely underinvested in. The fascinating things about this poll is, yes, of course, it's bad news for Labour, but they remain the largest party. What's really interesting is that the Conservatives and Reform, even if you add them up together, and you have this bloodbath, they're still a minority in Parliament.
Well, Matthew thought that things can still only get better. I also asked him at that point, do you still believe in Santa? Well, we can now speak with our political editor, Christopher Hope. Chris, welcome back to the show. Always a pleasure. This poll, OK, it's just a poll, but it's an astonishing turn of bad fortune for the Labour Party. It's been a traumatic 7 months in power since they came in July, 5 months even. But this poll is a huge swing, a prediction of 200 seats, including some big beasts in the cabinet set to lose their seats. Tell us more.
That's right, Martin. It's a mega poll by More in Common. 11,000 people, 10 times more than the normal figure in normal polling, October 31st to December the 16th. So it starts at the time of the budget and goes through to basically before Christmas. It shows here Labour losing 200 seats it won in July. Most of the red wall seats disappear. Labour left with 228 seats, 6 more than the Tories on 222. But the big story there is Reform UK. Nigel Farage's party, of course, a presenter at GB News. He gets 72 seats, increase of 67 seats. Lib Dem 58, SNP 37. Big names losing their seats here to Reform UK. Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary. John Healey, of course, the Defence Secretary. Ed Miliband, the Climate Change Secretary. And Bridget Phillipson, Education. And Jonathan Reynolds, Business. Wes Streeting, of course, the man who many think will at some point replace Keir Starmer as leader. He loses to an independent candidate, according to the polling. Again, it's just polling. It can be wrong as well as right. But a big worry here, and for me, no surprise that we see reports in the weekend papers that around 35 red wall Labour MPs have established a group trying to force the Labour government onto the front foot on the issue of small boats, because that is an area of repeated failure by this government. I know there have been some arrests today in the UK about another alleged people smuggling gang in Belgium, but look at the numbers. They still don't work for the government at all. You've still got 300 crossing yesterday, 322 on Saturday. You've got a record of failure the entire year through the Tory government and Labour. Figures up a quarter on what they were in 2023, but fewer than in 2022, a record year following, of course, the pandemic. So I think there's a big problems here for Labour. They are trying to deal with small boats, but the repeated failure on these measures, which matter so much, I think, to these reform voters, is driving support forward to reform, and that's why they've got more than 153,000 members. They say they've got them. We haven't seen independent analysis at GB News to prove that, but they claim those numbers because people are worried about the lack of delivery here.
And there are some big legal cases, of course, coming in the new year. We've got the Southport riot trial and the murder trial. We've got the Manchester Airport trial coming through, the murder of a British soldier. So testing times for the Labour Party on that front. But can I also ask you about the Conservative Party? It's been an astonishing state of affairs over the Christmas period, normally a very fallow period, not a lot going on. Nigel Farage turned a news moment about membership into an ongoing saga, which is seen to have left egg on the face of Kemi Badenoch. And on that point, rumours afoot where you are in Westminster there, Chris, that Robert Jenrick's team may be dusting off their campaign machine.
That's right, Martin. I'm looking at my phone there, pulling up this WhatsApp message that pinged a few hours ago. It's doing the rounds. It's called from a group. There it is indeed on screen now, from Conservatives for Jenrick. And you can see there it says how this individual says they'll be coming. This group comes off admin shortly. We're transitioning to a network space for activists, councillors and MPs, a place to collaborate and drive meaningful change you want to see within the party. Now, in all of politics, I often have to read between the lines. I mean, this is seen in Tory circles as an attempt to capitalise on the weakness of Kemi Badenoch. This is a Tory leader who isn't really setting out what she wants to do yet. She's set out her principles, but not really her policies. Into that vacuum on the right is Nigel Farage with populist measures which haven't been tested ever in government, but without any ideas from the Tory party. He is grabbing the headlines. I mean, it goes back to last week when Kemi Badenoch took issue with claims on the membership, the surging membership of Reform UK, beating comfortably the Tories' 131,000 declared at the time of their leadership result. Now, that is what claimed by Reform, but why on earth Kemi Badenoch got into a fight there? I mean, Reform UK, while grabbing the headlines in the media and on social media, is a minnow in Parliament. It's the 8th biggest gathering or collective or party in Parliament. The Tories are second to Labour. Why aren't the Tories focusing more on Labour and less on Reform UK? That's a question for the Tory party, I think. But yeah, no question, the concerns about the Kemi Badenoch response last week, handing that opportunity to Reform UK. I mean, Farage said that the publicity he got was worth $1 million in advertising, Martin. So giving that opportunity to Reform UK is making question marks going into the new year, unbelievably, about Kevin Badenoch. But I am told by friends of Robert Jenrick this is nothing to do with him. There are all sorts of WhatsApp groups. There's probably a WhatsApp group out there supporting Martin Daubney on GB News that you don't know about, Martin. So he can't be in charge of all of these different groups. And they're trying to they're saying that it's nothing to do with Jenrick himself. It's many supporters of him. I should join, by the way, the Daubney for Leader WhatsApp group sometime.
I think you've been at the old Christmas sherry there, Chris. So, but on a serious point, I was speaking to a lot of people in Nottingham over the Christmas period who have made the switch from the Conservative Party to Reform UK, and a lot of them were saying to me that they were hoping they were more to the right of the party. This is proper Brexit land, proper red wall territory. Now, you saw Ashfields, your Bolsovers, your Bassett laws, and they were all saying they were waiting to see if Mr Jenrick got the green light because they saw him making the right noises, leaving the ECHR, promising to turn back the boats, although they did have 14 years to do that and failed. But in terms of the dynamics, Chris Hope, of a leadership challenge, you explained to me earlier on that the rules have been changed. So even if we are seeing the beginnings, the embers of a leadership challenge, it'd be pretty hard for that to come into effect.
That's right. When I was there covering the announcement of Kevin Badenoch's win in that campaign, Bob Blackman, who's the chair of the 1922 Committee of Tory MPs, he sets the rules on leadership challenges. He told me in news on GB News that they had doubled that threshold for a challenge to 30% or so. So around 40 MPs are required to put those letters of no confidence in to Bob Blackman. And when he gets more than 40, there's then a challenge against Kevin Badenoch. I have been told by critics within the party of Kevin Badenoch that they wouldn't have a problem gathering together those numbers. But one critic said to me that Tory MPs are like frogs in hot water. They only start leaping about when it gets boiling hot. So there might be a while to wait for that to happen.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Thank you very much. As ever, Chris Hope, always a pleasure, and I hope to see you in the next hour. Brilliant. Now we can now speak with the founder of the Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. Martin, hope you had a fantastic Christmas and a happy New Year to you, my old son. Always a pleasure to have your company on GB News. Now, polls are your business. Data is your lifeblood. This poll, by any reckoning, Martin Baxter, it's a real eye-popper. A swing of 200 seats away from the Labour Party in such a short period of time, only 7 months in power. This is an astonishing poll. Of course, we're a long way away from any kind of general election. This is just a poll, and polls can be wrong. But tell us, Martin Baxter, data being your lifeblood, what leapt out to you, particularly around the notion of where Reform UK might start to surge?
Well, the poll confirms what generally the other polls are saying. It's going perhaps a little bit further than the average. We like to look at the average of polls, but that even that shows that Labour losing over 100 seats and would lose the majority in the House of Commons. So the summary for Labour after only 6 months in power is that things are going badly. It might be possibly somewhere between very badly and extremely badly, but it's going badly for them. And this poll just confirms what the other polls have been saying. So in that sense, it's credible. Let's say it's consistent with the other polls. Obviously, we do wait to see what's going to happen with real votes cast at the local elections in May. But at the moment, it is bad for Labour. On the other hand, unlike the Conservative Party, it's very hard for Labour MPs to get rid of their leader. They couldn't even do it when they had Jeremy Corbyn in charge. And Labour have got a very large parliamentary majority. So it's vanishingly unlikely that there will be an election tomorrow because Labour don't want one. But equally, it's not a great position for the Labour government to be in after such a short time in power that they, are vulnerable to the accusation that they'd be scared to have an election because they certainly wouldn't be rushing to have one at the moment.
And Martin Baxter, we talked about some of the big names that could lose their seats in this More in Common poll. Angela Rayner losing to Reform, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy, Bridget Phillipson, Jonathan Reynolds, all losing their seats to Reform UK. if this poll were to stand up. And in particular, the party seems to be doing particularly well around the North Nottinghamshire and the Derbyshire border there, and up into Yorkshire, the types of seats such as Rotherham and Doncaster. That's where we're seeing that red wall that's been flipping between the Labour Party, the Conservatives and Brexit. Now back to Labour in the last one. This time it looks like it won't flip from red to blue, but could go turquoise.
That's right. And of course, remember that although Labour won the election with a landslide back in July in terms of seats, in terms of the vote share, it wasn't very great. It was just 35%, which is a very low vote share for that sort of majority. So it doesn't take very many voters to disappear from Labour for that majority to shrink away. And the three-party system that we have at the moment, where we've got three parties currently between 20 and 30% in the polls, Reform, Conservative and Labour, whoever gets more votes than any in the other two can win a lot of seats. So that if Labour have the most votes, they probably get the most seats. But again, they're only a few percent ahead of the Conservatives, who are a few percent ahead of Reform. So it's a very fluid situation. And the thing that is completely unusual is that there are three parties in play. We haven't really seen anything like this in 100 years. Excuse me, back in 1922, when the new Labour Party overtook the old Liberal Party. There hasn't been this much sort of potential for change. So from the point of view of Reform, this is an ideal moment for them to make progress. The Conservatives are still on the floor. Labour have hit their unpopularity of being in government. Reform, if they can do it now, maybe they can never do it, because this is the best chance for Nigel Farage and Reform to pick up votes and translate that into real power in Parliament. But at the moment, they're in third place, but only just.
Martin Baxter, a pipette of realism squirted into this, of course. First past the post makes it incredibly difficult for a new party to get going. And yet you're saying this volatility, this dissatisfaction. Do you think we might be at that pivotal moment, that tipping point, where we could see a serious reset in British politics?
Well, there's a chance. Our figures show if Reform can move up from their current 22% support just into the very low 30s, then they would have a majority in the House of Commons. Labour showed that you can get a majority with the low 30s support rating. So it is possible. Whether it's going to happen, of course, we don't know. That Reform, Nigel Farage is popular with some people, but also unpopular with many other people. So there may be limits to how far Reform can grow. Equally, if the Conservatives collapse, a lot of their voters could go to Reform, but it might happen the other way, that the Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch might resurge and the Reform support wilts away. So we just don't know, but there's certainly much more open field in politics than it has been for decades.
Martin Baxter, always superb. Thank you very much. The founder there of Electoral Calculus. Thank you very much for joining us. What a year ahead we have in politics, no matter what you're standing. Now, someone from Team Jenrick has got in touch with GB News to say this. This was never an official Join Jenrick-related campaign group and was set up by people unrelated to the campaign. That is what I would call them distancing themselves from the potential rumour. Nevertheless, what's the worst thing they're being talked about? Not being talked about at all. Now it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win an astonishing 50 grand in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away here at GB News, and it could all be yours. Now here's the details that you could win that whopping, juicy 50 grand tax-free cash.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up, could British farmers ensure there are food shortages by hitting back at the Labour Party's inheritance tax raid? Farmers are telling me that they'll never back down, and I'll be joined by one of their leaders next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:27 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, farming fury is set to plough into the new year as a plot to block supermarkets is threatened over the government's inheritance tax raid. The coordinated action will reportedly block distribution centres across the country and could take place as soon as mid-January. Now, according to reports in The Telegraph, the action would increase incrementally but could result in a complete shutdown until the government sits down and negotiates. Well, for more on this, I'm delighted to say I now speak to the farmer and the protest organiser, Ollie Harrison. Ollie, magnificent to see you. I hope you had a great Christmas and have a prosperous and peaceful New Year. Meanwhile, no peace, it seems, for the Labour Party. You boys are digging in, and the prospect of food shortages now looms on the horizon. Tell us more.
Yeah, so there's a group of farmers that are organising. I think they've got a Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock tonight to look at what they're going to do around the distribution centres. I know you said Tesco then. It's not Tesco, sorry. But I'm not directly involved with that. What we're doing at the moment is I've actually been building a beacon today. So, the countryside's on fire. This is raging on, this conflict, shall we say. So I've been getting some steel together to make a beacon tomorrow, and we're going to have thousands of beacons burning across the countryside to symbolise that the heat is still on here and we are not going away. We've kind of given everyone the Christmas off, but there's so many more groups getting even angrier by the day that there is probably going to be some disruption within the next few weeks.
And Ollie, this is the farm beacons. Countryside is on fire. This was put out, I believe, yesterday, and it's just shooting up in terms of the number of farmers who are building beacons. This is a joined up network of farmers lighting fires in protest, but also as a beacon of hope. And I guess sending out a visceral message and a very visible message, Ollie Harrison, that you boys, you're in no mood to back down.
No, we've got to keep the pressure on. Everything's at stake here. We were busy for, should we say, 2 months leading up to Christmas. Then I've been doing some charity stuff with these tractors behind me for our local children's hospital just before Christmas. Tried to have a few days off, and then now, we keep the pressure on, keep the heat on. Hence the fires and the beacons, which is what we're going to do. Because so much is at stake, and because our food is at stake. As a nation, we simply just can't walk away from this and go, okay, it's just not an option for everyone out there. So we've got to remind them. I mean, I don't know whether Keir Chalmers is actually, I say that because of Judith Chalmers, is actually in the country tomorrow over New Year. But, these beacons will be there burning bright. There's over 1,000 registered in the first 14 hours. We cobbled together a bit of a landing page to count where they're going to be and what county they're going to be in. And getting some tech that had worked with the demand was quite difficult because everyone was just trying to log on all at once. But we think we've got there now. A lad that works who's pretty good at coding, so we've been changing it all day to keep it standing up, really.
And Ollie Harrison, we can see a picture there on screen. That's of farmers who registered their interest to light one of these bonfires. If any farmers are watching, if anybody wants to get involved, how do they get stuck in?
There's a website, a Countryside on Fire, I think, .co.uk. I should remember because we did it ourselves, but something like that. I'll look at any of the socials, go on there, put your county in and register what you're doing. And if you're going to have a big fire, notify your local fire service as well. We don't want to waste anyone's time with anything like that. And be sensible what you burn. Don't be burning stuff that's going to make loads of smoke. We want these to be seen so I can see my neighbours. My neighbour's one could be seen by his neighbours. So that's the whole point of beacons, really.
Yeah, the last thing you want is Ed Miliband turning up saying you're making too much smoke, too much toxic clouds coming out of the countryside. But on a serious point, you and I have spoken before, Ollie, about back in 2000, the farmers formed the blockade then. That was about a fuel duty hike, teaming up with fuel depots, teaming up with distribution centres, and it did force food shortages and it did force a U-turn into Tony Blair's government then, with popularity that this Labour government could only dream of, back to the notion of there being food shortages. Ollie, if that goes ahead, do you feel that the British public will go with you? Or are they still going to be supportive of you?
Well, this is the danger. Me personally, I believe that the strike action will do more than the blockades, because there's a risk of, causing too much disruption for other people trying to go about their day-to-day business. Whereas the strikes, if people are sensible and they stock up, then, it can be managed a bit easier. But blockading stuff, just at the moment, it's a difficult one. I'm just a bit worried that it could get out of hand very quickly and we lose the public support. And we don't want to do that. The public are our customers, they're our consumers. But, there is certainly the tools and the kit in the armoury to be able to do that if was needed. Like I say, we'll see what comes out of this meeting later on today. I think they're having it this evening. And watch this space, but just be sensible. Keep, don't go and panic buy. Just buy enough that you've always got something in the cupboards if food does get short for a week or so.
OK, Ollie Harrison, thank you for joining us. There's a beautiful sunset behind you there, just outside Liverpool. Beautiful tractors behind you. Good luck with the bonfires, and we'll try to make sure we get GB News to do some coverage of that tomorrow, that joined-up series of Beacons of Hope. Thank you very much, Ollie Harrison. Always a pleasure to have your company, and a happy new year to you. Now, loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including our royal correspondent takes a look back at the trials and tribulations of another ludicrous year for Harry and Meghan. But first, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories this hour: 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major police smuggling ring have been arrested whilst on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans into Western Europe. Authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. The gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have begun. A fourth body has been recovered from the Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at Sangatte this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded boat. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagles said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading those boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died whilst trying to cross the English Channel. And the King has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, who died at the age of 100. His Majesty says, "It was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights." Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, whilst Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags above Westminster and Downing Street are flying at half-mast to pay respects. Mr. Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia yesterday. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the New Year's period, it's often going to be unsettled with some outbreaks of rain and also some strong winds with multiple Met Office warnings in force. Back to this evening though, and we've got various frontal systems moving their way into the north, moving into cold air, so likely to bring not only outbreaks of rain but also some snow at times, particularly across Scotland where we do have some warnings issued, including an amber warning later on into the night for heavy and prolonged outbreaks of rain across Scotland, which may cause some disruption through the early hours of New Year's Eve. And this rain will later on move into western parts of Northern Ireland too, but elsewhere largely dry, plenty of cloud around, which keeps temperatures up overnight too. As we head through the early hours of New Year's Eve, as I say, very unsettled across Scotland, multiple warnings in force here. Outbreaks of rain, also some snow across northern parts of England, parts of Shetland too, expected to see multiple snow showers move through. And across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, outbreaks of rain, this heavy and persistent at times, so very unsettled start to New Year's Eve here. But elsewhere, largely dry, plenty of cloud around, may also see some drizzle around hilly areas too. For New Year's Eve itself, it is likely to stay unsettled. Still various outbreaks of rain moving their way slowly southeastwards into northern parts of England and then later into northern parts of Wales too. It does generally clear across Scotland, but still plenty of showers here. These also falling as snow at times too, and some quite blustery winds under those cloudier skies also. But across the far south and southeast, once again largely dry, though still plenty of cloud around here too. Now for the evening, we'll eventually see these outbreaks of rain once again slowly sink their way towards the southeast, and further north still very blustery here and still plenty of showers moving through too. Now likely to see more sunshine for the end of the week, but with a cold northerly flow, that means temperatures are likely to dip.
The latest GB News travel.
M4 in London westbound is queuing down to an earlier two-vehicle accident away from Brentford at Junction 2, heading towards Hayes at Junction 3. Into Staffordshire northbound, the M6 long delays down to an earlier accident between Stoke-on-Trent at Junction 16, heading towards Crewe at Junction 17. Into South Wales, the M4 approaching the Brynglas tunnels, delays continue there, heading towards Malpas at Junction 26. Travel time is around 25 minutes heading through there. Into Berkshire, clockwise, the M25 delays continue there, just before the M4 at Junction 15. Anti-clockwise, the M25 in the roadworks, delays there, heading down towards the Wisley interchange. Travel times around 10 minutes there, heading just prior to Junction 10, where it meets for the A3. I'm Liam Jones. For now, that's your very latest update.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's approaching 4:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, with 2025 just around the corner, believe it or not, today at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very, very special message.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I just want to add my thank you to that. Thank you so much to everybody for your support this year. It's been an astonishing year for GB News. And thanks to all of those who came to say hello to me in Nottingham and Stroud over the Christmas period, shook my hand, and some of you even bought me a pint. Thank you for all your support. We're the People's Channel, but we couldn't do it without you. So thank you very, very much indeed. Now then, the Duke and the Duchess of Sussex have had a busy year of royal style tours, trials and triumphs, but it hasn't, of course, all been plain sailing. Fragile business ventures and a number of preposterous High Court battles means that Harry and Meghan's fights could continue into 2025. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker has taken a look back at an astonishing year.
Prince Harry and Meghan's year included a mixture of personal triumphs and professional setbacks. In February, Harry settled his phone hacking case with Mirror Group newspapers, winning reportedly £300,000 in damages, plus legal costs. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex celebrated their 6th wedding anniversary this year, and in December, their office released a Christmas card featuring a new photo of the couple with their children. Other photos nodded to their 2 royal-style tours to Nigeria and Colombia. In Nigeria, Harry met injured service personnel and Meghan co-hosted a Women in Leadership event. In Colombia, the couple highlighted how social media and the internet can harm children.
All of us agree, despite whatever disparities there are throughout the world, no one contests the fact that we want to keep our children safe.
A lot of people are scared and uncertain. And I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness.
But both tours were not without controversy. Colombia in particular raised eyebrows about security because the Foreign Office advises British citizens not to travel to parts of the country. At the same time, Harry claims he can't bring his wife to the UK for safety reasons. It's understood the Sussexes were provided with a full security detail in Colombia. The Duke and Duchess also launched the Parents Network, supporting parents whose children have been affected by online harms. 14-year-old Breck Bednar was groomed online before being murdered in 2014. His mum, Lauren Lefebvre, says Harry and Meghan's profile helps raise awareness.
When people like to listen to a celebrity or a royal or, some people that have, some sort of famous element, it just brings more attention to it and helps with the cause. And I think that's really important because sometimes we just feel like a bunch of parents with no faces. We're just any old parent. And yet this can happen to any child.
In 2025, Meghan Markle plans to finally launch her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard and a new Netflix series focused on cooking, gardening and entertaining. But Harry's recent polo documentary received poor reviews, leading to speculation about the future of their multi-million-pound Netflix deal. Harry and Meghan appeared to focus more on separate business and charity ventures, but are expected to travel together to Canada to attend the Invictus Games in Whistler this February. The Invictus Games, seen as one of Harry's biggest successes, supports sick or injured veterans in a Paralympic-style competition. Harry will dominate global headlines as early as January when he enters the dock in London to be grilled by lawyers representing The Sun newspaper over his unlawful information-gathering allegations. The Sun has always denied Harry's claims. As his father, the King, continues weekly cancer treatment, perhaps there'll be another opportunity for the pair to meet too. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Well, it's certainly been a fun year for them. The funniest thing about it for me was when they went to Colombia on their Royal Non-Tour, and hardly anybody in Colombia knew they were there. And those who did didn't seem to care. Anyway, things are going to get better, can't they, in 2025. Now, if you're in search of some winter sun this year, and who can blame you, then here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On the 8th of October at Battersea Arts Centre, a new orchestra launched its inaugural season. The orchestra, which is named Chromatica, is formed of some of the best young musicians in Britain. They're due to perform in traditional venues and in community spaces. The aim is to bring their youth and dynamism to a wide repertoire of music. Predominantly, they'll work with emerging conductors who will have the chance to shape the orchestra and its repertoire. To share her experiences of bringing the ensemble together, I'm joined by the violinist and Chromatica orchestra lead, Maren Bosma. To what extent is this novel? To what extent is this new ground?
Well, new ground, it is new ground in a sense that this is a completely new orchestra. Obviously, in the current sort of cultural climate, it's not really easy to set up a new orchestra. And so in that sense, it's a novelty for us to kind of try and carve out our space in the current climate of musical orchestras and musicians in Britain.
Yes, I mean, it's quite odd in a way to think of a new orchestra because the ones that we have tend to be struggling and numbers indeed have been reduced. I used to be associated with an orchestra which unfortunately went under. You've got some private backing for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think the private backers have been willing to give you support? What is it that they see as your unique selling proposition?
Well, Chromatica Orchestra essentially is an early career orchestra. So we're formed of all sort of top musicians who've graduated in, say, the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Because everyone is of that generation, there is a sort of enthusiasm and dynamism that we bring to the stage I think is quite unique. The orchestra's mission, it's really focused on creating opportunities for young emerging musicians.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:48 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just a quick reminder, you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025. Bev, Patrick, Ben, Darren and Emily will all be together for a very special show, GB News New Year's Eve. And that's live from 10 p.m. tomorrow night, only here on GB News. Make sure you don't miss it. Now, snow, rain and strong winds are set to batter the UK as we enter 2025, with severe travel disruption expected on New Year's Eve. And this comes as in the past hour we've learned that Edinburgh's Hogmanay celebrations have now been cancelled due to concerns over extreme weather. And an official spokesperson had this to say. Due to the ongoing high winds and inclement weather in Edinburgh city centre, we regret to announce that outdoor events scheduled for tonight and the 31st of December are unable to go ahead on the grounds of public safety. Drat. Well, now we can speak with the meteorologist, John Catley. John, welcome to the show. What a pleasure to have you. John Catley is a weatherman, a legend, and still, you've got that moustache, a broom so stout you could sweep away your autumn leaves. John, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Look, it's New Year.
Thanks,
the
Martin.
weather's going to be rubbish once again, but bad news for Hogmanay, and I hear as well, bad news for Blackpool. What's going on?
Well, yes, it's not unusual to get stormy winds at this time of the year, Martin, but we're getting the whole potpourri, really. We're getting the whole batch of bad weather coming at the same time. So we've got strong winds, we've got some torrential rainfall. In some places, there will be ice and some settling snow as well. So it really is a pretty bad time to be thinking of travelling, either going back from Christmas or going to these Hogmanay celebrations, which, as you've mentioned already, are not faring very well in Edinburgh, at least. So it is a case of just batten down the hatches at the moment. Things are going to get pretty bad, and the cold weather's going to stay with us well into the new year as well. So just to try and pinpoint what's happening at the moment, there is some snow already in the north of Scotland. The winds are beginning to strengthen once again, and there will be another band of heavy rain sweeping in across northern Britain tonight. That band of rain comes south tomorrow, but weakens at the same time. But then we get a big impulse of heavy rain, strong winds, gale force winds coming in late on into New Year's Day. And so that's the batch that's going to be bringing some further risk of flooding, really, across northern areas. And it will turn to snow too, even in parts of northern England up into central and southern Scotland. So I'm not sure exactly why it's been cancelled at this stage. It's obviously windy and there will be some strong winds. Those winds will tend to just ease down a little bit for midnight tomorrow night. But then the heavy rain and the snow come back again during the day, New Year's Day. So it's a very sensible move to cancel these celebrations.
John, we've got a bunch of farmers, I believe over 1,000 farmers now, hoping to light beacons of hope, bonfires across Britain. I'm taking it they might have to pack some extra firelighters.
Well, if the rain doesn't get you, the wind will, that's for sure. And you could even be hit by some snow as well. So whatever you're planning for the next 2 or 3 days, it is going to be very difficult to get these plans absolutely right. It's all a question of getting the timing right. Depends where you are in the country, of course. But whether you're a farmer or just trying to celebrate the end of a year and start a new year, and hopefully it's got to get better in many ways, then it's just a question of luck, I think, in some respects, because it is going to be very, very tricky. And as I've said already, it looks like the cold weather is staying with us throughout next week. So there will be a lot of frost, a lot of ice at night. There will be some further snow showers around as well. And temperatures by day really struggling, only just about 1 to 4 degrees. So it's a real slice of winter, but it's Britain and it's a new year coming up.
Now, John, I've got somebody in my ear saying, what about my flight? They're hoping to get to Sicily. They're hoping to get out of the country. We've seen flights grounded for days this week over fog. Anything likely to be severe enough to disrupt flights out of the country, do you reckon?
Well, yes. I mean, there are these very poor conditions for travelling, however you're going to travel around the UK and travelling abroad as well. There's been plenty of bad weather across in Cyprus over the past few weeks, really. I think as far as the Mediterranean is concerned, it'll be OK when you get there, but it's getting there, of course. I think the worst of the conditions have been with that fog, low cloud for several days across Gatwick and Heathrow. Things have improved to some degree. I'm sure they can manage to take off in winds gusting up to 45 to 50 miles an hour. And the visibility will be better if it's not torrential rain at the same time.
Superb stuff, John Catley. It's always an absolute delight to have you on the show. The last of many appearances this year. Thanks for everything you do. I think you're an absolute legend, and I hope to see you many more times in the new year. John Catley is a weatherman and a total legend. Happy New Year to you. Thank you very much indeed. Now, loads of you, I don't know if I mentioned it, I think John Catley is an absolute legend. He was my weatherman when I was growing up as a boy. I've just always loved the bloke. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts on the big stories of the day. If you haven't, you can do that by going to gbnews.com/yoursay. Silver says this: I absolutely support British farmers. Rachel Reeves has decided to victimise those who feed the nation and those who work from dawn to dusk. Because I asked people earlier on, would you be prepared to have food shortages as a way of showing your support for British farmers? And Rec adds this: what this government is doing to them with their envy taxes is disgusting. Combined with their net zero insanity, it's a genuine risk to our future food security. And Penny says this: the farmers will not lose my support. As far as I'm concerned, they need to do anything that gets this excuse of a government ready to listen. Keep those views coming in. I'll be joined by another farmer in the 5 o'clock hour to talk about the fact there could be food shortages. It worked in 1990. The Labour Party of that time, Tony Blair's Labour government, was forced into a U-turn. Might food shortages be coming? And might Sir Keir Starmer's government do a U-turn on that? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Coming up, a bombshell new report has predicted that the Labour Party could lose over 200 seats. That's next, but first is your weather with Honor.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the New Year's period, it's often going to be unsettled with some outbreaks of rain and also some strong winds with multiple Met Office warnings in force. Back to this evening though, and we've got various frontal systems moving their way into the north, moving into cold air, so likely to bring not only outbreaks of rain but also some snow at times, particularly across Scotland where we do have some warnings issued, including an amber warning later on into the night for heavy and prolonged outbreaks of rain across Scotland, which may cause some disruption through the early hours of New Year's Eve. And this rain will later on move into western parts of Northern Ireland too, but elsewhere largely dry, plenty of cloud around, which keeps temperatures up overnight too. As we head through the early hours of New Year's Eve, as I say, very unsettled across Scotland, multiple warnings in force here. Outbreaks of rain, also some snow across northern parts of England, parts of Shetland too, expected to see multiple snow showers move through. And across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, outbreaks of rain, this heavy and persistent at times, so very unsettled start to New Year's Eve here. But elsewhere, largely dry, plenty of cloud around, may also see some drizzle around hilly areas too. For New Year's Eve itself, it is likely to stay unsettled. Still various outbreaks of rain moving their way slowly southeastwards into northern parts of England and then later into northern parts of Wales too. It does generally clear across Scotland, but still plenty of showers here. These also falling as snow at times too, and some quite blustery winds under those cloudier skies also. But across the far south and southeast, once again largely dry, though still plenty of cloud around here too. Now for the evening, we'll eventually see these outbreaks of rain once again slowly sink their way towards the southeast, and further north still very blustery here and still plenty of showers moving through too. Now likely to see more sunshine for the end of the week, but with a cold northerly flow, that means temperatures are likely to dip.
Expect a warm front moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
The M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey got a lane closed heavy down to a vehicle having a tyre change away from the Wisley interchange at junction 10, heading towards Leatherhead at junction 9. Into Staffordshire northbound, the M6 long delays down to an earlier collision between junction 16, heading towards Crewe at junction 17. Into Lancashire southbound, the M6 has a lane closed slow down to a vehicle having a tyre changed, heading away from junction 33 towards the Broughton interchange at junction 32. Into Cambridgeshire southbound, the M11 traffic heavier than normal, heading between Duxford at junction 10 towards junction 9, and in South Wales the M4 looking slow approaching the Brynglas tunnels. That's heading away from the Caldra up towards Malpas Road at junction 26. Travel time is just shy of half an hour. I'm Liam Jones. For now, that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Paddington and all across the UK. On today's show, are the Labour Party in turmoil because a bombshell new poll has predicted that Labour could lose over 200 seats at a future election with big-name casualties, including Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper all losing to Reform, and Wes Streeting also losing to pro-Gaza independence. And with Reform surging now to over 150,000 members as Kemi Badenoch flounders, Westminster is ripe with rumours of a Tory leadership plot. And British farmers are digging in against the Labour government with threats of tractors blocking food distribution centres. They've warned that we could see no food and serious chaos within the next fortnight. On today's show, I'll be joined by a farmer who's leading this rural revolution, who's told GB News we will never back down. And are your New Year's Eve plans at risk? Well, some big events have already fallen to the weather as snow, rain and strong winds are set to batter Britain. And that's all coming in your next hour. Well, it's a pleasure to have your company. Thank you once again to everybody I saw over Christmas in Nottingham and in Stroud. And indeed, while I was travelling, people coming over to say hello, to shake my hand, to pose for pictures. Even some bought me a beer just to talk about politics, but mainly to say thanks for GB News, to listening to us and getting the message out. And no, thank you for all your support. It's been truly humbling. It's been brilliant, actually, to chinwag about politics while drinking a beer. Two of my favourite, if not my two favourite pastimes on the planet. I went down to Nottingham Forest. I met John McGovern, the Nottingham Forest captain. There he is, 2 European Cups he lifted in 78 and 79. Starting to feel a bit like those days now in Nottingham. Thanks to Nottingham Forest for having me on Boxing Day. But many thanks to all of you for watching and supporting GB News. Got a question for you this time. Would you support food shortages in order to show your support for British farmers? I'll be interviewing one of the leaders of a new rural revolt movement, and that's coming soon. Get in touch. Let me know. Will you support food shortages if it helped support farmers? gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories from the GB Newsroom this hour: that 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major people smuggling ring have been arrested whilst on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans into Western Europe. Authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. The gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have also begun.
You're wanted in Belgium.
A fourth body has been recovered from the Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at the Sangap this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded boat. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagle said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died trying to cross the Channel. The King has paid tribute to former US President Jimmy Carter, who died at the age of 100. His Majesty says it was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights. Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, while Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags above Westminster and Downing Street are flying at half-mast in respect. Mr. Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia yesterday. A national day of mourning and state funeral will be held on the 9th of January. South Korea's acting president has ordered an emergency safety inspection of the country's entire airline operation system as investigators work to try to identify victims and find out what caused the deadliest air disaster in the country. The King has paid tribute to the victims of the crash that claimed the lives of 179 people. The Jeju air passenger plane was carrying 181 people when it skidded off a runway at Muan International Airport in South Korea. The country's national fire agency said 85 women, 84 men, and 10 others whose genders weren't immediately identifiable died in that fire at the airport around 180 miles south of Seoul. Emergency workers pulled 2 people, both crew members, to safety. Local health officials saying they remain conscious. A British teenager sentenced to a year in prison in Dubai after a holiday romance with a 17-year-old girl has surrendered himself to authorities to begin his sentence, according to a campaign group. 18-year-old Marcus Fakana was with his family in the UAE when he met the girl, who's also from London and is now 18. He was arrested and charged after the girl's mother found their chats and photos and called the Dubai police. Campaign group detained in Dubai previously said Fakana planned to appeal that sentence and urged the UK Foreign Secretary, who's the family's MP in Tottenham, to intervene. However, when asked about the case, the Foreign Secretary said people should follow the rules of other countries. Elsewhere, 5 people have been charged in connection with the death of One Direction star Liam Payne at a hotel in Argentina, according to local media. The 31-year-old died in October after falling from the 3rd-floor balcony of a hotel in Buenos Aires. Hotel manager Gilda Martin and hotel employee Esteban Grassi, as well as Roger Norres, who was reportedly a friend of Liam, have been charged with manslaughter, Argentina's National Criminal and Correctional Prosecutor's Office is quoted as saying. Brian Pais and Ezequiel Pereira, who were both reportedly working at the hotel, have been charged with supplying drugs. A judge has reportedly ordered that 2 of the 5 accused should be remanded in custody. Edinburgh's Hogmanay celebrations are cancelled due to high winds and extreme weather, organisers announced hours ahead of celebrations kicking off today. Weather warnings are in place for snow, wind and rain right across much of the UK on New Year's Day. Yellow warnings are in place for Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Scotland from tomorrow before extending across most of the UK on Wednesday. A series of warnings are in force. They'll remain in place in some areas until 6 a.m. on the 2nd of January. The Met Office says there's likely to be travel disruption as well, with almost all of the country impacted by at least one yellow alert over the 4 days. And smokers have been urged to kick the habit in the new year after new analysis shows how much of their lives are lost by each cigarette smoked. Men lose 17 minutes of life with every cigarette they smoke, whilst a woman's life is cut short by 22 minutes with each cigarette. That's according to estimates. Now, this is more than previous estimates had suggested, that each cigarette shortens a smoker's life by 11 minutes. The new estimates are based on more up-to-date figures from long-term studies tracking the health of the population. The new analysis commissioned by the Department for Health and Social Care suggests that if a 10 cigarettes a day smoker quits on the 1st of January, then by the 8th of January, they could prevent loss of a full day of life. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, it's already beginning to look a lot like a dismal new year for the Labour Party. A shocking new poll has Sir Keir Starmer's government losing an astonishing 200 seats at the next general election. And we could even see major cabinet casualties with the likes of Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper and Ed Miliband losing their seats to Reform. And even West Streeting, the Health Secretary, losing possibly his seat to a pro-Gaza independent. Now, they've only been in office for 6 months, but how long can this chaos go on for? Well, let's now speak with our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. So by any reckoning, Chris, it's been a tumultuous 6 months in power for the Labour Party since that election on July the 4th. And this poll will be the Christmas present that Sir Keir Starmer really did not want to end the year. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's a big poll too, Martin. Welcome back to Westminster. 11,000 people polled between the end of October, the time of the budget, and December the 16th. Labour lose, according to this poll, 200 seats of the ones they won in July, mostly in the Red Wall. The big gainer, of course, is Reform UK, up to 72 seats from a gain of 67. The Tories back up by 100 seats to 222 seats. Lib Dems 58, SNP 37. Big names losing their seats. Angela Rayner, John Healey, Ed Miliband, Jonathan Reynolds, Bridget Phillips and Yvette Cooper, and they all lose their seats to Reform UK, according to the poll. West Streeting to a challenge by an independent candidate, where he is in East London. So a big challenge here, I think, for the Labour Party. We know the challenge which Reform already puts into the Tory Party, because, of course, they've got 150,000 members now, they claim, although they haven't shown us the evidence yet at GB News for that figure. And then we've got the concerns from Kevin Badenoch questioning that number. Of course, Nigel Farage's leader said last week that the figure is correct, and Kevin Badenoch should apologise. So lots of concerns here for both parties. It comes, of course, has more bad news on the issue of small boats, and that's what's driving a lot of this. These parties that try and deliver things in power just can't do it. I think the Tories failed over 14 years to control illegal and legal migration, and Labour have failed in the past 5 months of doing the same. We see numbers out today, 300 arriving here yesterday, 322 on Saturday. Figures now up a quarter since 2023. They're down from 2022 by a fifth, but that, of course, was a figure maybe was increased by coming after the various COVID lockdowns. So since the election, nearly 23,000 people have arrived here under Labour. That's up by 27% on the same period when the Tories were in power. No wonder a Labour group of Red Wall MPs have formed a group fearful of losing their seats to Reform UK.
And also, Chris, we're seeing similar concerns amongst over 100 rural MPs, Labour Party MPs, because of the ensuing farmers' revolt. And, of course, there are other seats further north concerned about their fragility of their majority because of the winter fuel allowance. So there are many, many fires on many, many fronts that the Labour Party are trying to put out. And meanwhile, rumours are swirling around Westminster today, Chris Hope, of a potential leadership threat to Kemi Badenoch. Tell us more about that.
That's right. There's emails WhatsApp's buzzing around Westminster since I came back from my brief Christmas break. Martin, you may have seen the same things. There's a group that's around the support of Robert Jenrick when he's running to be leader. On the screen now you see it there, Conservatives for Jenrick. Now what it says in there is that this group will come off admin shortly. That means they'll become active again and transition to a new networking group of activists, councillors and MPs, a platform to collaborate and drive meaningful change for those who want to see it within the party. Now, reading between the lines as I have to in my job, that means for those people, they think they can try and stir the pot, maybe support Robert Jenrick somehow getting back into power or taking over the leadership, I should say, from Kemi Badenoch. Now, people around Robert Jenrick completely deny any association with this group. And the thing with WhatsApp groups is they are set up by people who may be your supporters, but you can't have eyes on all of them. And that is certainly the claim by those close to Jenrick. I should say that we, as far as we know, Kemi Badenoch is around in the UK. We're keen to ask her to come on GB News regularly. Of course, there were reports the weekend of a meeting with the bosses of GB News over concerns about the platforming of Nigel Farage. Very keen to get Kemi Badenoch on. And just while I'm on that topic, we know that the PM, Sir Keir Starmer, has finally taken his first holiday, Martin, since becoming Prime Minister. He's reportedly, according to the Madeira Island News, in Madeira. That's an island off the west coast of Morocco. He flew there commercially on Saturday. I've been checking out the temperature for you, Martin. It's 19 degrees midday tomorrow in Funchal, the capital of Madeira. Somewhat warmer than in the UK, but January is the coldest month. If you want to get there, Martin, it's £51 flying by EasyJet from Luton.
Yeah, well, I could join Never Hear Keir and go to Madeira for a sweet break, but I think actually I'm going to stay here and hold the fort at GB News. Chris Hope, superb as ever. Thank you very much for joining us today on the show. See you more soon, my friend. Now, for more on this story, I'm now joined by the Labour campaigner, Aisha Ali Khan. Welcome to the show, Aisha. Always a pleasure to have your company. We were just saying there, it's been a pretty nightmarish 6 months. There hasn't really been a positive news story for the Labour Party since they came into power. And now this, the nightmare at Christmas, a poll showing a wipeout of Labour top brass.
Oh gosh, yes. So the poll is pretty comprehensive. Over 11,000 people were asked. But honestly, even the director of the company that carried the poll out just said, look, these are all hypotheticals. Another election could well be 4 years away. Anything and everything can change in those 4 years. So it's not written in stone. It's not going to be, this is a definite outcome of a general election that's going to take place 4 years from now. So let's just wait and see what happens. And again, look, we had this poll took place from October to mid-December. There was a lot of things happening, interest rates, the bills going up, uncertainty over sort of tax announcements. So there's still a lot of things that are up in the air. So we'll see what happens in about 4 years' time.
I think you're right. Things could change. Things could get a lot worse. I mean, we're looking ahead to potential food shortages. I'll be speaking to a farmer shortly about an orchestrated campaign there to try and force the government into backing down. The farmers are telling me they will never give up. They've been picked on by the wrong demographic. We're about, Aisha, to potentially see a very, very cold snap coming in. Don't forget, in 2017, the Labour Party's own document said that could lead to 4,000 deaths if the winter fuel allowance was taken away. That has been taken away by the Labour Party. And it's interesting, is it not, to look at the names on this hit list. Ed Miliband, a minister, net zero, proven to be about as popular as something unwanted at a funeral. We're seeing Yvette Cooper totally failing to control our borders now, 23,000 here under the Labour Party. So things could actually get worse.
I mean, look, there's been loads of policies that were announced when we won the election 5 months ago. And these policies need time to play out and see what the actual outcome's going to be. Net zero was never popular. It was never popular when Boris Johnson announced it and obviously had all these policies in place under the Conservative Party. And now obviously Labour are in power and they are continuing with some of the policies. They've introduced some new policies. So let's see what happens. As for Yvette Cooper, as for the migrants, obviously this is a long-term problem. I've spoken about this issue before as well. There is no magic wand, Martin. We cannot just say, right, nothing. These are not going to happen anymore until proper systems are in place. Until people find, until we have legitimate, safe routes for genuine asylum seekers to enter the country. These horrific journeys are going to continue, and which will inevitably lead to loss of life as well. This shouldn't be happening.
These journeys are being made from a safe country, France, and people are often paying a lot of money to get here. I think people see through this now. They are taking their own lives in their own hands. They are sadly and tragically dying, but that's because there is a sufficient pull factor. There's no deterrent. So that will continue. And as long as the Labour Party carry on repeating the mistakes of the Conservative Party, nothing's going to change.
Martin, I mean, again, I have to keep reminding people, as a migrant, as an illegal asylum seeker, let's be honest, these are people who've come on this route illegally. They're not migrants because they haven't been granted leave to remain and to work and to earn and pay taxes and so on. So I think it's really misleading to use the word migrant in the first place. These people that are coming and entering the country illegally, using these very dangerous passages across the channel in awful conditions, in awful and dangerous weather conditions as well. They are detained. They're basically, their claim is assessed, and if the claim has any merit, asylum claim, sorry, if the claims have any potential merit, then they are allowed to proceed.
But the huge majority are granted the right to remain in Britain, and that's my point. A piffling amount are returned. There's a magnetic draw to the country with endless free NHS, school places. They'll be given free accommodation. They won't feel the pinch of a harsh winter snap. Pensioners could be dropping dead. This lot will be sitting pretty.
First of all, nobody's given any money or any accommodation or anything straight away. You have to go through a process.
Yes, they are.
Once they're assessed,
they're housed the day they land.
They are then allowed to apply for certain housing and benefits and so on, only after the assessment period is over and done with. You cannot, I mean, look, we're talking about pensions. We've spoken about pensions before as well. We're going to see what happens. This obviously is December. It's the first winter. It's the first Christmas. Let's see what happens in the new year. Again, personally, I think if the policy is too harsh on vulnerable members of our society, then it needs to be reversed. We cannot have people who contributed and paid to the system then let down in this way.
My earlier point is that the Labour Party's own documents in 2017 said that 4,000 pensioners would die if the winter fuel allowance was taken away. That was the Labour Party's own policy when in opposition, but they've done it in power. So my point to you is, yeah, there are more pensioners now. There are more vulnerable people. Energy is even more expensive. Now, there is more of a risk of a cold snap. So are pensioners dying something that the Labour Party is prepared to tolerate? And if so, why?
Martin, look, when Rachel Reeves became Chancellor, she looked at the paper, she looked at the figures basically, and there was a huge black hole that had been left by the last party. We have to find a way of moving forward. We have to find a way of plugging this gap in public spending. We have to find other ways as well. And it's not just, let's just pick on the pensioners and that's it. We have to look at different ways. We have to find
Aisha, there are £10 billion was found for people who work in the public sector. £22 billion was found for carbon capture. £16 billion was found for foreign climate aid. My point is, politics is about choices, and the Labour Party made the choice, which they previously said would be inhumane to take, and that was acting the winter fuel allowance. And what I'm saying to you is, why are the Labour Party sticking by the guns of a policy that's been universally unpopular? Why won't they sit down and perhaps compromise?
Well, look, I personally would hope that there would be a middle ground, that we can find a way forward. But just to pick up a point, Martin, you've mentioned about public sector salaries. These have been sort of suppressed for the last 14 years under the Conservative government, successive governments, by the way, initially the guise of austerity measures. As a teacher, I've not seen my salary increase substantially until this last year, and that even then, that has been too much inflation. So to say that we've just been handing free money to people for doing their jobs is not true. We're basically aligning salaries with what they should have been had they been paid fairly and properly over the last 14 years to match the rate of inflation. So that's one thing. And you've mentioned, and I've been on here before as well, and we've spoken about the pensioners and the policies and so on. I don't want to see vulnerable people suffer from, and deciding whether they're going to heat their home or eat. That's just completely unfair, and we do have to have, we have to get a grip on the bills and so on. And obviously, in January, there's going to be another potential increase in the cost of heating our homes as well. So that's another concern. So if we can find a way, I would love to see this policy reversed, or at least more support being given out to those people who are genuinely going to struggle to afford to pay their bills. That's what I've said all along, and that's what I will continue continue to say, regardless. I'm kind of going against Labour policy here, but I'm not a spokesperson for the Labour Party, so I feel I am in a very unique and a better position. I can criticise where I feel criticism is necessary, and I can say, yes, they're doing a good job where I feel they are doing a good job.
Okay, Aisha Ali Khan, I think we can part company today in agreement with the idea it would be a good idea potentially to not target vulnerable pensioners, and those who can afford it, fine, means test them. The same with farmers, but that takes compromise. Is that the mood of the current Labour Party? I would suggest not. Aisha Ali Khan, thank you very much, and a very happy New Year to you. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Bye.
Now it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year, and your chance to win an astonishing 50 grand in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize that we've ever given away here at GB News, and it could all be yours. And here's the details that you need to try and get your hands on this whopping, juicy 50 grand tax-free cash.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up next, British farmers have said they will never back down to the Labour government. I'll be joined next by Clive Bailey, one of the farmers who's leading the rural revolt. Join me soon. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is some of her delicious hummus. We both love hummus. This is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here. So can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No,
I think
it's always chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafibre or water to help with consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, look, I'm not a vegan, I love my steaks, I'll just get out of there now. But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods, so algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods. For me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top. That sounds and there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, farming fury is set to plough into the new year as a plot to block supermarkets is threatened over the government's inheritance tax raid. And a coordinated action will reportedly block distribution centres across the country, which could take place as soon as mid-January. According to reports in today's Telegraph, the action could increase incrementally, but could result also in a complete shutdown until the government sits down and negotiates. Well, I can now speak with the farmer and the owner of the Farming Forum, Clive Bailey. Clive, Merry Christmas to you and your wonderful family, and a Happy New Year. So, when we last spoke in Westminster, you said, so far, you've played nice, gentlemanly, Queensberry rules, but you did hint then there may be something fresh to come in the new year. And talking of which, threats to shut down the food network are increasing. You got your finger on the pulse. Tell us what a farmer's telling you.
Hi, Martin, and thanks for asking me back on again. Happy Christmas to you as well. Yeah, it's kind of what happens next, really. I think farmers are very aware that we have fantastic public support. And I think the reason for that is because actually this isn't just a farming issue, is it? The business property relief thing affects all businesses, all family businesses, all multi-generational businesses. So I think most people, that's where that support's coming from. It's not just a farming issue. It's much wider and will have a massive effect on the economy. And it's not just those business owners. I think employees, everybody I speak to is really, really worried about what this government's doing. It makes no sense that they're trying to grow things, but discouraging investment. Now, what happens next farming-wise, no, we don't want to lose that support. Farmers are very conscious of that. It's important. No one wants to be like a Just Stop Oil and start causing public problems. But it's fair to say the supermarkets are one of the big reasons why farm profitability is so low, that 0.5% return on investment that makes this tax impossible to pay out of profit, so meaning that families would have to sell farms. Same with businesses. So I think, if there's a target, really, that's likely. Now, it all depends what the government do next, really. There's been the arrogance from them so far. We've demonstrated time and time again now, 50,000 people in that first rally in Westminster. And then we had, 600-700 tractors turn up in central London. There's been other kind of smaller protests, got hundreds of tractors turning up in various market towns and cities around the UK so far, all peacefully, all non-disruptive. Just to make that point that they've got that number wrong. They keep wheeling out this figure, 500 farms affected. And quite frankly, the arrogance is getting a little bit unbearable, and understandably, a lot of farmers now and various WhatsApp groups and threads on the Farming Forum are starting to talk much more about, right, OK, we're going to have to get a bit more French with this. Gloves are off, no Queensberry rules now. We're going to have to disrupt. It's going to be the only way to bring them to the table. I mean, they're not even talking to DEFRA about this, are they, when they brought it out? They didn't even consult with DEFRA. No impact assessment, nothing. So something's got to bring them to the table, and that's probably going to mean, something a bit more than we've seen so far, yeah.
And yeah, we are hearing reports of distribution centres for Asda, Marks and Spencer's and Tesco perhaps being targeted to prevent food getting through, to see if that has an impact. But tomorrow night, Clive, I know you're involved in this orchestrated, joined-up lighting of bonfires across Britain by farmers. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, again, this is another non-disruptive thing we can do to just demonstrate that they've got those numbers wrong. I think the website for this went live less than 24 hours ago. I think there's already well over 1,000 people committed to light these beacons. It's kind of demonstrating that effectively what the Labour government have done with that budget, what Rachel Reeves did there, they're setting fire to the countryside. They're going to burn, they're burning the future for future generations. So, I think this is something that we haven't seen. I think last time anything like this happened was around the millennium. There was the beacons all over the country. I think there'll be several thousand fires on farms, and members of the public are kind of welcome to go to show their support for that, because I think it's just another message without disrupting or causing problems that just points out this isn't going away. It's a bigger problem and it will continue to escalate. And as you say, who knows where this goes? The farmers don't want it to get there. Look, all we want to do is carry on running our businesses. We haven't, this isn't something that anyone has any desire to do. We want to enjoy our Christmas, enjoy our New Year like everybody else, and run our farms. But it's not going to go away until the government come to the table and start talking about this. Drop the arrogance, start consulting with the farmers it affects, and even their own advisors are telling them they've got these numbers wrong. Yet they still seem to be sticking to those only 500 farmers affected type numbers. So yeah. Something's got to bring them to that table, isn't it?
And Clive Bailey, 1,000 simultaneous bonfires across Britain. Ed Miliband's worst nightmare. In fact, I think that the Brecon beacons last time were stopped because of the carbon footprint nonsense. On a serious point, if we do advance a situation where the shelves start getting bare and the food supply starts to dwindle away, do you think the public will still support you?
I think they do, because I think they will, because I mean everybody I speak to, farmer or non-farmer, they're all saying something's got to be done to kind of stop this government arrogance. Anyone can see that we're heading into the mother of all recessions, I should think, in the new year. They're not going to generate the growth. Jobs are going to be at risk. People are frightened about what's going on. I think it's why we're seeing this huge swing towards reform and whatever. I mean, I'm sure you've done stories on that in the last few days, but I think people they want to change. They're frightened, and I think they see farmers as maybe like we saw in some of the European countries. I think they see that actually farmers are in a position to be able to force that change. Most people can't. The only thing they can do is kind of change their vote at the next election. Unfortunately, that's 4 years or so away, isn't it yet? Whereas I think they are looking towards farmers to help them force that change. So, if it gets to that point where there's less food on shelves, it is going to inconvenience people. There's no getting away from that, but equally, hopefully we can keep that support. I don't think in a country like the UK anyone's going to starve, but maybe avocados might be harder to get hold of, yeah?
OK, Clive Bailey. Well, that will certainly hit them where it hurts in lefty land. Thank you very much, Clive Bailey, owner of the Farming Forum. Stay safe and a Happy New Year to you. Now, loads more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including 5 people have been charged in connection with the death of One Direction star Liam Payne. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories this hour: 3 Afghan nationals who were convicted in Belgium over their involvement in a major people smuggling ring have been arrested whilst on the run in the UK. Prosecutors in Belgium say they were part of a gang involved in organising the transport of migrants from Afghanistan through Iran and the Balkans into Western Europe. Authorities say they were also part of a group who committed serious sexual offences, including rape against male migrant minors. The gang members now face being returned to Belgium to serve their sentences, and extradition proceedings have begun. A 4th body has been recovered from the English Channel near Calais after 3 migrants died when they fell from a small boat yesterday. French media reports say the body of the man was found near the beach at Sangatte this morning, a few hundred metres away from yesterday's incident. 3 migrants died when they fell into the water as their small boat was setting off for Britain early in the morning. Dozens of others were rescued after they fell from the overcrowded vessel. Border Security and Asylum Minister Dame Angela Eagle said that ruthless criminals were responsible for overloading the boats. So far this year, 77 migrants have died whilst trying to cross the English Channel. And a national day of mourning and state funeral will be held on the 9th of January for former US President Jimmy Carter, who's died at the age of 100. King Charles paid tribute, saying it was with great sadness that I learned of the death of President Carter. He was a committed public servant and devoted his life to promoting peace and human rights. Joe Biden praised him as a man of principle, faith and humility, whilst Donald Trump said Americans owe him a debt of gratitude. The UK flags above Westminster and Downing Street have been flying at half-mast in respect. Mr Carter died peacefully at his home in Georgia. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the New Year's period, it's often going to be unsettled with some outbreaks of rain and also some strong winds with multiple Met Office warnings in force. Back to this evening though, and we've got various frontal systems moving their way into the north, moving into cold air, so likely to bring not only outbreaks of rain but also some snow at times, particularly across Scotland where we do have some warnings issued, including an amber warning later on into the night for heavy and prolonged outbreaks of rain across Scotland, which may cause some disruption through the early hours of New Year's Eve. And this rain will later on move into western parts of Northern Ireland too, but elsewhere largely dry, plenty of cloud around, which keeps temperatures up overnight too. As we head through the early hours of New Year's Eve, as I say, very unsettled across Scotland, multiple warnings in force here. Outbreaks of rain, also some snow across northern parts of England, parts of Shetland too, expected to see multiple snow showers move through. And across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, outbreaks of rain, this heavy and persistent at times, so very unsettled start to New Year's Eve here. But elsewhere, largely dry, plenty of cloud around, may also see some drizzle around hilly areas too. For New Year's Eve itself, it is likely to stay unsettled. Still various outbreaks of rain moving their way slowly southeastwards into northern parts of England and then later into northern parts of Wales too. It does generally clear across Scotland, but still plenty of showers here. These also falling as snow at times too, and some quite blustery winds under those cloudier skies also. But across the far south and southeast, once again largely dry, though still plenty of cloud around here too. Now for the evening, we'll eventually see these outbreaks of rain once again slowly sink their way towards the southeast, and further north still very blustery here and still plenty of showers moving through too. Now likely to see more sunshine for the end of the week, but with a cold northerly flow, that means temperatures are likely to dip.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long delays of at least an hour heading north up the M6 through Staffordshire towards and past the Stoke-on-Trent exit, junction 15. There may be some roadworks just south of the Kiel services. I'll look into it. And in the West Midlands, just over the border to the west of Walsall at Darlaston, the Walsall Road remains shut at the scene of an accident near the railway bridge. On the Surrey stretch of the M25, the inside lane is closed anti-clockwise from junction 10 to 9, just after you pass the roadwork section of the A3. A lorry's got a puncture. On the M3 in Hampshire, one lane shut northbound 6 to 7 near Basingstoke following an accident. In Devon, midway between Exeter and Oakhampton, the A30 is closed westbound between Cheriton Bishop and Wooden Down after a car left a large spillage behind and it caught fire. And London Liverpool Street mainline station closed till the new year for engineering work. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 20 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, 5 people have been charged in connection with the death of One Direction star Liam Payne at a hotel in Buenos Aires in Argentina. The men charged with manslaughter have officially been named locally as Mr. Payne's businessman friend Roger Norris, hotel chief receptionist Esteban Grassi and the head of security Gilda Martin. And the judge is reported to have placed a travel ban on the trio and ordered them to forfeit the equivalent in Argentine pesos of around £38,000. Now, for more on this story, I can now speak with the showbiz journalist Lebby Ayres. Lebby, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. Still, it's a case that absolutely shocked and appalled the nation when Liam Payne tragically died in October. And now there have been a series of arrests. Are we any nearer to finding out the truth about what happened on that fateful day?
I think there's still going to be a question mark over what exactly happened in the hotel room, what led up to those final moments in Liam Payne's death. But obviously the judge, they're doing their best to try and sort of unpick exactly what's happened. I know there have been sort of text messages, records of phone calls that have been sort of flying over the internet that are being picked over by Liam Payne's fans. But what we do know, yes, now is that these 5 men have been charged. Two of them with supplying, 2 hotel employees have been charged with supplying cocaine to Liam Payne. And the other 3, perhaps slightly unusually, under sort of, not quite the same as how we proceed under British law, but it's what we would recognise as manslaughter, but that they left Liam in a vulnerable state and they left him available or open to risk, basically. So in the case of Roger Norreys, he had left the hotel. He says that he left Liam in a playful mood, but what we've seen from sort of video clips really is that Liam was sort of seemed to be getting more and more out of control, to the extent that eventually he had to be sort of carried up from the hotel lobby into the hotel room. And then it's those sort of missing moments. What exactly happened? Why was he seemingly left alone in that room? What caused him to then fall from the balcony? And I think the authorities have decided that he may have been unconscious or semi-conscious when he fell, so that it wasn't a deliberate act, or they don't think that it was a deliberate act. So that's why we've got these 3 charges against, as you say, the head of security, that his sort of de facto manager or friend, Roger, and the hotel receptionist.
And Lebby, it may just be the case, after all of this investigation, after all the allegations, that this was simply a tragic accident. A troubled individual who struggled with his waning fame, a predicament he found himself in. He lost a record deal recently. He had a more troubled personal life, turned to substance abuse. It could just be, in the fullness of time, this could just be a tragic accident.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And, we have seen it time and time again, pop stars left to their own devices in hotel rooms, taking large quantities of drugs and then losing control. And they're far away from home. They're far away from the people that love them. In this case, Liam's girlfriend had left the country, and that does leave them vulnerable. He was obviously searching for some sort of solace. Unfortunately, he was looking for it in, drugs, in the company of people that may not have been looking after his best interests. And that's the situation we find in. And yeah, as I say, it's, perhaps that now that those 3 men and the 2 that have been charged with cocaine, they now have a chance to lodge an appeal. And I think if that appeal fails, then they'll move to trial phase. So then, I think we can all really wish for is that Liam's family get answers about what happened in those final moments and whether anything could have been done to save him, I think.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. As a showbiz journalist, Lebby Ayres, on the tragic death of Liam Payne. Thank you very much and have a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, moving on, if you're in search this year of some winter sun, and who can blame you with this weather, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Conditions slowly improving across the far east of the Mediterranean, but the risk of showers across southern parts of Spain over the next 24 hours. Low pressure starting to pull away, but still the risk of some heavy showers for Cyprus, but generally dry across Greece, across into Italy. Sunny spells here, temperatures around average for the time of year, but the risk of some showers across southern Spain, and generally dry as well towards Tenerife there, reaching 20 Celsius. Generally dry for the next few days, best of the sunshine towards eastern parts. See you.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
1 in 20 people are diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder across the UK.
Yes, Healthwatch has revealed that men are more likely to suffer from this than women. Did you know?
Triggers apparently include a decrease in daylight hours, which is certainly happening around about now. If you're leaving the office, it's dark. When you come home, it's dark, as well as the falling temperatures.
Yes, and both of those things happen a lot, don't they, here in Britain? So how can we combat the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder? Well, to discuss this, we're joined now by Dr. Andreas Fonseca, the founder and director of Thrive Mental Wellbeing. Really good to see you this morning, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, there'll be lots of people watching and listening this morning and saying, what a load of rubbish. It's always been cold in this country. It's always been dark. What is seasonal affective disorder? Is it really a thing?
Well, it is a thing, and it's been known for quite some time. This is not new, really. It is a form of depression. That's what it is, and it's got specific characteristics that kind of differentiate it from other forms of depression. So the reason probably we're talking more about it is because it's basically people are more aware of it and they're recognizing it more. So before you used to be sort of just saying this person's got depression. Now you have some specific things to look at that can differentiate it from other kinds of depression, which is quite useful because it's got some specific forms of treatment. So the things that are different about seasonal affective disorder are that for the diagnosis you need 2 years in which you only have episodes during either the late autumn or early winter. So that's when they start, and they fade away by late spring, summer. Early summer. So that's how it works. And you cannot have any episodes at any other time. So it has to be seasonal, specifically seasonal.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, debate time is 5:49 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just a reminder, you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025. Bev, Patrick, Ben, Darren and Emily will all be together for a very special edition of a show. It's called GB News New Year's Eve Live from 10 p.m. tomorrow night. Tune in. Don't miss out. Countdown into the new year with us at GB News. Now then, it's the new year, so of course, snow, rain and strong winds are set to batter the UK as we enter 2025, with severe travel disruption expected on New Year's Eve. Now, this comes as in the past hour we've learned that Edinburgh's Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to concerns over extreme weather. Well, to get the latest on this, I can now speak with the meteorologist, Jim Dale. Jim, it's been way too long, my old son. I hope you had a great Christmas and a very, very happy New Year to you. So, it's New Year. The weather's going to be terrible. It always seems to be the way. Tell us, where's going to feel the pinch the hardest?
Weather is king, isn't it? And yeah, Edinburgh's just fallen. There's big pressure now on London as well, because we talk about where it's going to be hardest. Generally speaking, it's countrywide. Why? Because we've got a low pressure system coming in, a cold front coming south. Behind that cold front, strong winds and some snow. Ahead of it, a lot of rain, and the winds in the south and Midlands. That's why I'm concerned for London as well. Edinburgh's gone on winds around about 40, maybe gusting 50 miles an hour. So you can see why that one's gone. I don't think London's going to be too far away from that. But look, New Year's Eve for the most part will be a difficult time. I was watching the farming thing earlier on in your programme, the beacons that are going up across the country. Many of those are going to have a problem as well in terms of both the wind and the rain. So the rain is basically through the centre of the UK on New Year's Eve. So through Wales into the Midlands, that's going to be about the worst area where the persistent rain will be. To the north of that, colder but windier. To the south of that, windy and dry. So it's the winds for London particular, but not just London, most other places. So all of this is arriving at completely the wrong time, if you get my point. But as I say, we're not in control of the weather. It does what it wants, and it's 2024 has given us many, many moments, and it's ending on a little bit of a high, let's just say.
And the fireworks celebration, we understand that Blackpool, that's now bitten the dust. Actually, probably quite a few people might be quite pleased if Sadiq Khan's woke drones don't get in the air on New Year's Eve. They always fly in the air and give us a Black Lives Matter message. Can you tell us, though, Jim, on a serious point, that we've seen flights grounded these past few days and week because of dense fog? If anybody's trying to get away for the Christmas period, might this weather be enough to further disrupt their travel plans?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different side of the coin. Of course it is, because we're talking wind, we're talking rain. Now, what's going to happen once we get into New Year? We see that rain travelling to the south of England. So New Year's Day, especially the morning period in the southern area, persistent rain. It's going to be horrible. You're not going to be going for an easy walk in southern counties, that's for sure. In the north, though, it's all changed. Those temperatures are going to be falling rapidly. So ice is going to be the problem. But I think as we unwind, through New Year's Day and into the next couple of days, it all settles down. It settles down in a cold frame, an icy frame, very, very different, plenty of sunshine. And some snow in Scotland. I mean, it's inevitable, isn't it, this time of year? You're going to get that. And some of that snow will start to travel a little bit south. Not too much. The models are pulling back a little bit, but we're going to have to wait for later in the week to see whether or not we get another enhanced Atlantic system coming in to meet the cold air. And if we do, then we could well be seeing some more snow in other places. So that's to be watched for. So look, it's, 2024, plenty of weather there. I don't think there's too different in 2025.
Jim Dare, we've got to leave it there. Very happy New Year to you. Thank you very much for joining us on GB News. Now, GB News, we'd love to hear what you think, and every day we've been asking you for our poll of the day. And today we asked you this: is the UK government doing enough to tackle migrant gangs in the Channel? And the results are now in. And an astonishing poll, only 1% said yes, that we are doing enough. And 99% no, said no, not enough is being done. Stop sitting on the fence, GB News viewers. Start speaking your mind now. That's all from me for now. But don't worry, I'll be back at 7 o'clock. I'm hosting Farage tonight, and we'll have the brilliant guest from the More in Common, the director of them, on that astonishing poll that shows Labour are set to lose 100 seats. Now, Jubes & Co is up next, the fiercest debate show in town. And tonight, it's Darren Grimes standing in for Michelle Juby. That's next. I'll see you back at 7 p.m. on Farage, but now it's time for your weather, and here's Honor.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the New Year's period, it's often going to be unsettled with some outbreaks of rain and also some strong winds with multiple Met Office warnings in force. Back to this evening though, and we've got various frontal systems moving their way into the north, moving into cold air, so likely to bring not only outbreaks of rain but also some snow at times, particularly across Scotland where we do have some warnings issued, including an amber warning later on into the night for heavy and prolonged outbreaks of rain across Scotland, which may cause some disruption through the early hours of New Year's Eve. And this rain will later on move into western parts of Northern Ireland too, but elsewhere largely dry, plenty of cloud around, which keeps temperatures up overnight too. As we head through the early hours of New Year's Eve, as I say, very unsettled across Scotland, multiple warnings in force here. Outbreaks of rain, also some snow across northern parts of England, parts of Shetland too, expected to see multiple snow showers move through. And across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, outbreaks of rain, this heavy and persistent at times, so very unsettled start to New Year's Eve here. But elsewhere, largely dry, plenty of cloud around, may also see some drizzle around hilly areas too. For New Year's Eve itself, it is likely to stay unsettled. Still various outbreaks of rain moving their way slowly southeastwards into northern parts of England and then later into northern parts of Wales too. It does generally clear across Scotland, but still plenty of showers here. These also falling as snow at times too, and some quite blustery winds under those cloudier skies also. But across the far south and southeast, once again largely dry, though still plenty of cloud around here too. Now for the evening, we'll eventually see these outbreaks of rain once again slowly sink their way towards the southeast, and further north still very blustery here and still plenty of showers moving through too. Now likely to see more sunshine for the end of the week, but with a cold northerly flow, that means temperatures are likely to dip.
Expect a warm front moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays continue in Greater Manchester on the M56. The inside lane on that 4-lane stretch has been closed westbound from junctions 6 to 7 in Hale and Bowden, where a lorry's broken down. In Staffordshire on the M6, one lane's been closed northbound just before junction 15 at the Stoke-on-Trent exit. That's at the scene of an accident. And heading out of London on the M4, one lane's closed from junction 2 to 3, Brentford to Hayes. Emergency barrier repair works are underway after a lorry was on fire. In Devon, midway between Exeter and Oakhampton, the A30 remains shut westbound between Cheriton Bishop and Widden Down. A car caught fire. Spillage is having to be cleaned up by emergency services. And London Liverpool Street mainline station is closed for engineering works affecting Greater Anglia and Stansted Express services. And that's the very latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won